You are. We get that. We're good? Yes. Good evening. And welcome to the Winchester Select Board meeting. My name is Rich Mucci. As you can see, we have new speakers in the auditorium here. I'd like to welcome you to the Monday, August 15th, 2022 Select Board meeting. With me this evening are my colleagues Anthea Brady, Michael Betancourt, and John Fallon. It's been a long day. Why am I blanking on your name? I just said hi, John. With Mariano Gulubov may be joining us later on, maybe zooming in, but he is a little delayed in the air right now, so hopefully you guys have a chance to join us. So we're going to start right off. We have some special guests today on the Washington Swanton Street development. We have Melanson Development Group with us, and we're going to conduct an interview of their RFP. I think we've all had a chance to look through all the materials and are here to have a presentation and answer questions. So Attorney Vaughn, I can turn it over to you if you'd like.
Sure. Pleasure to be before you all. Appreciate your allowing us the time to present. So for the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with the law firm of Reamer Bronstein, pleased to be representing Brian Melanson Development Group in connection with the RFP submission. A couple other folks we have here, Larry Reeves, who's our architect with Reeves Design, responsible for what I hope you'll think are some nice renderings and visuals that have been produced, along with Tony Coyne Hall, who is our affordable housing consultant that has a great degree of experience, having worked for DHCD in charge of the LIP program for a period of time back in her prior life. So very pleased to be before you in connection with the property at Washington and Swanton, which I know you're all familiar with the site, so I'm not going to spend much time reintroducing a site to you that you already are intimately familiar with. But Brian and Melanson Development are very excited about the opportunity to redevelop this site in a manner that we feel is very much consistent with the vision and the desires of the town that really made itself manifest when the town decided to take the property and put it to a more productive use. This slide here is really just showing kind of a statement of the obvious. These are some older photos, so I know since that time the boards have actually come down off of the building and some of the weeds have been removed as well, and kudos to the town for making the site appear a little bit better than it certainly has in the past. But certainly not a site that is being utilized in the highest and most productive use for the town, and we're very hopeful about an opportunity to really put something forward that we feel checks the boxes for what the town was looking to accomplish for this site, that being a mixed-use development. So I've known Brian a long time. I've been representing Brian for a better part of 25 years on some different projects, and local Woburn-based developer who I know is very sincere in his interest to try to work collaboratively and cooperatively with the town. So maybe I could turn it over to Brian, say some things, and then we're going to kind of have folks speak as needed here. Try to keep it to 15 minutes, I think, is the board wished. So.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you for entertaining us tonight. We're, as Mark said, excited about this project. We've been looking at this for a long time. We've put a lot of time into it, a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and we're excited. We've put a lot of time into these plans that we've drawn up. We pulled them together in a short amount of time. We've got some old renderings that we had done some time ago, but things haven't changed. We think that's a beautiful building, and we think it fits into the neighborhood very nicely. We're looking at it from the Swanton and Washington Street side on the lower right-hand corner, the upper left-hand corner. We're looking at it more from, I guess that would be a southerly view looking back at the building. But you'll notice that there's a garage on the left-hand corner of that building that leads to on-grade parking that's kind of hidden. So all our parking is hidden under the building or on grade under that garage right there. We know some of the things that the town wanted, a retail component, wanted some affordable housing. We wanted to stay within 45 feet if we could, and we've done that. We've worked on that. So we've put a lot of time and effort into it. Larry has done a great job. He'll be able to walk you through how he arrived at some of these points that we have. But again, excited about the building. We can answer more questions in greater detail as we get into this process. I'm just going to quickly tell you who's involved, and the principals mostly here now. You all know Mark from Reamer and Brodenstein. We've got Larry Reeves for the design and the architectural, and New Seasons Development, who are experts in this type of development. Tony Coyne is with us. Tony Coyne Hall is with us tonight. Wendy Cohen is the president of the company. And some of the people that are there are not here tonight. R.J. O'Connell, the engineering, I think they were involved in the project early on, as was Vanessa. They've taken a look at the traffic, and Melanson Development, yours truly. So that's the team. We have a lot of background in this type of development in terms of developing properties like this, and Larry has done a lot of work, and New Seasons has been at this for a long time. So we feel very comfortable that we can do a good job, something that the town and us will be proud of looking back years from now. Hopefully we'll look back and say this was a terrific project for us and for the town. So I think I'll kick it back to Mark to move on from there.
Yeah, so when kind of addressing this project early on and looking at the RFP, obviously, in terms of what the goals and objectives are, obviously we knew there's a request or a requirement to be able to count all of the units towards the town's inventory. So you'll see in the presentation that's been submitted, and as we walk through tonight, a 60-unit development proposal with a little over 25% of the units set aside as affordable, thus allowing the town to be able to count all of those units. So Tony's going to speak to that in terms of the makeup of the units and the affordability mix. But we knew that that was a requirement, so we have intended to satisfy that, which I believe we have. The design considerations, I think Larry's just going to walk through and show you what went into that. And I think, not to steal your thunder, Larry, but I think a lot of that is really trying to assess the neighborhood and understand the landscape, both visually and in terms of topography and size and scale of buildings that are out there, to make sure that we're proposing something that we think is sympathetic to the neighborhood at large. And then lastly, we are including a retail component of about 6,000 square feet of commercial space along Washington Street, which obviously we don't have any specific tenant for, but as I think we've indicated in the RFP, we're very open to having a dialogue with whomever about appropriate utilization of that. You know, we thought that some form of perhaps a retail that could be a convenience element for the neighborhood, for folks that both live in the building as well as in the area, maybe a cafe that had some outdoor seating, so a market. But you know, you can't do a lot with 6,000 square feet in terms of, we don't want to have a huge traffic generator either, because we obviously know that that's not something that's desirous. So we look forward to working, you know, with the town in terms of the makeup of those users. So Tony, maybe you can go to the next slide and just speak to the mix here. So
taking on that mixed income housing goal that you identified when you put out the request for proposal, we're targeting 3 types of households in all the rental units. Households of market rate, we have 80% and 60% of area median income. Those are 2 income groups. I think it was identified in your RFP that you were hoping that you could target some of that with the 60%. I just want to do a little point that cost of lowering the rents is going to be borne by the developer. We're not going pursuing the low-income housing tax credit programs. So let's see. And you'll see that there are, again, a total of 60 units, as Mark said. 44 of those units are market, 16 units are affordable. I think 25% of the units make it 15, and Brian is recommending that we do 16. So we also have the, I don't know if you can see the affordability with, I think that's on our chart on page 6, on the right-hand side, those are the rental post rents. I will let you know that on the 80%, that excludes the utility allowance, which will be deducted from the rent that the tenants will pay. And all of the units will count on the town subsidized housing inventory, so all 60 units will count.
So maybe just get into the design, because I know that that's obviously front and center for folks that maybe either living near this project or driving by it on the way to the transfer station, as a lot of us do quite frequently. So I'm going to turn it over to Larry and just speak about some of the design principles and environmental sustainability that kind of went into your thought process.
Thank you, everybody, for having us here today.
Sure.
As Mark and Brian mentioned, we have spent some real time looking at the site in the past, and the RFP brought everything into a greater focus for us, so we could direct our energies in the most appropriate way. I think, as you can see, this is generally the rendering of what we're looking at doing. And the way we began is that the neighborhood is really very rich in housing types and includes a diverse range of single and multifamily structures. The character of the area is predominantly defined by some pretty rich historical styles, really from kind of mid-19th to mid-20th century. Then sort of from a residential standpoint, from a commercial standpoint, to the north, things change pretty quickly into a commercial zone. Grade drops off. Our neighbors are commercial properties and train tracks and the bridge. So it's we're relating to multiple elements sort of in the neighborhood. And the biggest thing that does happen is we do have significant grade changes, which works really, we think, in our favor to be able to modulate the building and get some terrific parking underneath it, get it out of the way, get it out of the off the streets, and not worry about that. One significant thing that does happen is it doesn't just stop there at Washington; it just keeps going up the hill. So the houses on the south side do have some real height to them. So what does happen is our view, which is the upper left corner, is, on Washington, though that elevation is actually at or below houses across the street as far as ridges are concerned and such. So we really tried to respect that as our massing reference for that area. We can switch over to 9 and take a look here. Looking at the plan and how things work at the street level and pedestrian level, you can see pretty clearly the large space on the right that faces Washington is our commercial space, and below that is, as Brian mentioned, is actually essentially a building is built over a bridge. It's a small tunnel access from Washington back to the parking area. The majority of that parking is below a landscape courtyard. I'll show that shortly. But we have on the street front on Washington, we've created a small pocket park sitting area that can actually can augment the potential cafe use or sidewalk outdoor space use. As you go up Washington there on the right, the storefronts would be open depending on what the final use is to make use of the significant area. We're actually set back believe we're almost 20 feet from the property line to our canopy element where the colonnade is. And then the main building is an additional 6 or 8 feet, depending back from that. So we really do have a true promenade happening and real serious use and while maintaining a very good pedestrian and cycling potential connection with the street on the sidewalk itself. Let's see. I think the next, actually a little bit that you can see here, that's fine. We, as you go around the corner onto Swan on the upper portion of this view, we actually have brought the grade around the really an interesting round turret element on the end of the building. The level walkway actually continues over, gets us to the main entry for the residents over towards the left. And then if you stay on the main sidewalk and go down Swan, it drops about almost, I think it's 7 feet on the sidewalk itself. So our total grade drop is about 9 feet, really from our main floor down to the sidewalk on Swan. We're actually sloping a door or sloping a drive down to the basement level over there. But we've created a planted landscape terrace, step terrace element as well as a transition between the street sidewalk and the at-grade access. So we then come in on the upper left-hand corner is the entrance into the garage. We have, for my note here for the number of spaces. We have actually 66 parking spaces down there. Up on the upper level, we have a total of 40, which 24 of those are designated residential, 16 are commercial. So we've actually allocated a space and a half per unit, and with a large number of one-bedroom units, it's very possible that we'll have leftover spaces. It's not uncommon for the one bedrooms to really just have one, especially when we're close to the transportation in this area. We do have some additional amenities there that go with it. Then next, the second floor then above our main, as I mentioned, has a landscape courtyard. We're really working with a U-shaped building. We built our height along the street front and then stepped it back significantly, broke the whole building back at the courtyard. It's about a 7,500 square foot courtyard, a very large space. Good open space, allows for some private areas for the at-grade units and some good public space in the middle. Final configuration, we have some flexibility on how that all works, but really just all units have some good outdoor space reference to it. We do have porches and balconies for each of the units along the way.
Can I just ask a question about this? I'm just trying to understand the layout. So the units in the horseshoe closest to the common space, those are all at grade, right?
Yes.
And they open up to those?
To the landscape.
To the landscape,
area.
okay.
Yeah.
And then the ones on the outer horseshoe, that's a common hallway that goes around?
It's a common hallway through the middle, and then the orange is actually outdoor canopy or deck space for each unit around there.
Okay.
So those are our roof structures without building above them. But there are patio or roof structures in that deep orange zones.
Can I add one more question onto that?
Yeah.
The grade level parking is covered by this space?
Yes, and actually, if you might flip back up more, there you go. So there's a dozen spaces that face down on this, and there's a line actually kind of, and some columns that are shown partially over those. That is the edge of the terrace above. Yeah. So there is some openness to the sky of those dozen spaces, as well as all the green space in there.
So just, sorry, while we're on that slide, just, I was
Oh,
gonna ask this question. So the units around this horseshoe.
Yes.
So those open up on either looks like you have the doors opening on the back.
Yeah, so what we do have here is we do have a central entrance hallway for everything. The main entrance, and then an L-shaped hallway there that links, kind of ties over to the commercial and comes around. But then the units that are to the left they're a floor above the garage. So there's actually the green space you see there is actually is below these units. So they're not fronting directly onto that space here.
So those units on the left don't have walkout. Those are
they do have decks, their own decks,
But
but
not
they're
onto
up
that
above
green
it, not
space,
onto the green space. Yeah.
So they're
As-
okay, so they're elevated.
However, the units up on the right, up above, they do have at grade, so they are out at flush out to the outdoor space, at the same level as the perimeter sidewalk is. If that helps.
So the commercial space is at grade though with the parking?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we do have a separate walkway from that parking area along the side of the building, so you don't have to walk down the driveway at the same time with the cars. And just so we can see the third floor, and go to the next slide, then you can kind of see that there's a little more perimeter of the orange. We've scaled back and pulled back the facade at the third floor. It breaks up the massing there and helps reinforce the more residential style to what we're doing. I think then this gives us, we've seen the views from Washington and Swanton, but up on the upper elevation here, that to the left is the corner of Washington and Swanton. And then the lower view below is the north-facing wall. We do have full exposure across the whole site on that side, so we do have essentially four stories visible there. But we do, as we go up Swanton, the whole scale changes, goes back to sort of 3-story, 2.5, 3-story. Really, it's 3 in this case, as you come around that corner. We pulled the building back quite a bit from the existing building. We've pulled the corner of our building about 10 feet both directions to where our turret is, and that will open up that entire intersection to begin with visually pretty significantly. And then we'll do some mitigation on the street for turn lanes, bike lanes, all the pedestrian stuff.
Go ahead, before we move on, can you just take us through the different materials you plan on, whether it's brick, hardy plank, asphalt, what's going on there? Because whether it's sustainability, but it's also, I live 2 blocks away, so.
Oh, well, there you
I
go.
don't want an eyesore of the neighborhood, right? So from a maintenance
interest.
standpoint, I'm cognizant of that, so just maybe talk about that, because it's a handsome building, and I'd like to understand what's going on.
Right, yes, we do expect it is a brick base. We do have a brick veneer base, not a thin brick. It's a full brick. And we're considering, and likely will, have some portions of what are shown right now as brick at the second floor level could switch to a complementary color, but like hardy plank at that point, that would have the same color, the same general coursing to it as the brick would. But then
That's a function of value engineering, you get into the pricing of it.
yeah, and yeah, especially as that. We do have a lot of brick here right now, more than we, I think, anticipated initially, and so we'll pull back on some, but we don't want to change the nature of the material changes and the sort of the vibrance of the facade. So then we are expecting to use the yellow areas are a hardy plank, clapboard with a good good reveal to it as opposed to a real skinny stuff. And then we do have some accents of composite shingles, or shakes rather. You know, it'll have the cedar siding look to that. And as far as the roof goes, you know, it would be a composite roofing. I am showing there, kind of in between the small gables in there, I do have a parapet that would be, you know, it does sit back about 8 or 10 feet from the main cornice line. So here it looks dominant, but in reality it sits back significantly. That we would likely face do that vertically. We have some flexibility. We could play with the roof and do it more as shingles if we need to. But because it sits back so far, we likely don't need to from you know, the view angles that you pick up on this.
Thank you.
But yes, that's, you know, all of our, you know, very traditional treatments for all the windows and doors. You know, at the commercial area, we do expect to have storefronts down to grade, you know, be able to open doors to the street. And really that happens, well, it's essentially the first 3 or 4 bays there on the upper left-hand elevation is commercial, and then around on Washington. So all of those can actually be, ultimately would be patio doors or whatever it might be.
So do you find that one parking space per bedroom? I don't think one per unit, because it's bedrooms. You know,
That's
is
about
that,
where it falls. Yes.
right?
Yes.
But is that adequate? Is that too much? You know, well, and it's evolved. Like my kids used to all drive cars, now they Uber.
Yeah.
So I get the societal change too. But what have you found?
Well, it generated a lot of discussion of our team as to what it would be, and we felt like 1.5 is appropriate from a marketing perspective. And you know, I just, in my drive here, I measured it out again. I've done it, you know, a few times before just to double check. It's a half mile from town hall to the site, so I think it's probably another, you know, it's a 3/4 mile walk to the train station. So you know, I think we are going to have a fair number of folks that decide that they maybe don't need a second car, or maybe they don't even need a first car. But you know, we felt that from a marketing perspective, 1.5 sounded about right. I mean, I think that's certainly, you know, that would be high if it were, you know, right here in the middle of the center, right? But you know, we think at that particular location it would work. And you know, we have parking as well, obviously, for the commercial. So. But.
And also, we have a lot of one-bedrooms. More than half of the units are one-bedrooms, so that's going to lend itself right there to, you know, some people not having the cars, one car, or whatever, so, yeah.
Do you have a plan B for the retail space if for whatever reason it doesn't turn out as we hope?
Well,
Not a CVS.
Walgreens.
Yeah, right. We think it's a great location for retail there. We've gotten calls already on that, and it's and we see you know, some type of institutional use, maybe a bank or an insurance company, but also the convenience, and I think that's a natural right there. So I don't have any reservations at all about that retail.
Great, thank you.
So we just turn it over to, I'm not sure who was doing, Brian or Tony, but obviously the financial component is of
Might be a little easier to look at your printout if.
but you know, we obviously did submit a detailed pro forma and the other financial requirements that the RFP required. But Tony, you want to just maybe walk through? Or?
I'll talk about this generally. Certainly the detailer is within the RFP that we provided you. This development is $33.9 million, and the sources are from 3 places. Brian's in there. He is delaying his development fees, and the permanent debt is likely coming from Massachusetts Housing Partnership through a program, I think they're called Perm Plus program. And the acquisition, construction, soft costs, I think that if I'm correct, Brian, it's $315 per square foot.
I think it was a little bit less than that, I think that, yeah.
I'm
like
sorry,
two-
so that's why I didn't check that before I came in. And that obviously totals the same amount of money. Again, I want to mention that this doesn't include going after a grant or going after the low-income housing tax credits. The construction loan, we're estimating around between 6 and 6.21. We feel pretty comfortable leaving this better this week than we did a few weeks ago. And I know that some of the, you looked at the income that we're getting for the rents. We're also, I think there's some income generated from the parking spaces and from some storage that's going to be provided. So that is really a thumbnails version of the financing plan.
And we, obviously, I know what's of interest to the town is the acquisition price. You know what, we are proposing $4,050,000, which is a lot of thought went into that from Brian and his folks as to, what the number would be, but, we didn't want to gloss over that, but that's obviously in there as well. So, if you want to go to the next. So I'll maybe tackle this one, Mr. Chairman. But just from a permitting perspective, obviously, we are looking to go through a friendly 40B process. Today, the site is zone GBD1, so residential technically is not allowed under the current zoning, so the only way to do that would be through a 40B process or a zoning change, but I'm not sure that anyone has the appetite to change the zoning for this one particular property. But so I think it certainly, we feel would meet all the requirements for a 40B site, and, don't have any concerns that we wouldn't be able to go through the project eligibility letter process. And I do want to emphasize our intent is to work, we have it here, but cooperatively and collaboratively. We see this as something that is going to be a partnership with the town. And as much as Larry, the beautiful renderings and all that, but I'm not sure exactly what you showed here is what ultimately might get built. I'm sure there's going to be some tweaks and modifications perhaps along the way that as part of the process. So, but we aren't looking to do at this point any dimensional or height waivers. So we're looking to live within what the GBD1 allows for dimensional requirements. If they are, it would be minimal from our perspective, but again, we're not quite there yet. And then just lastly, I think as Brian alluded to, we try to put a team together that all have a fair degree of experience, not only with development in general, but working with the 40B and the subsidized housing process. So with that, I think that was the last slide. So happy to answer any questions, address any comments you may have, but certainly look forward to working with the town on this.
Well, thank you all for the detailed presentation. I did want to just note the implementation timetable that you have in here. So this would be the best case scenario, which would be, occupancy. We're looking at the end of 2025, if everything went according to plan.
Well, I think a lot of it depends on how quickly the town can move also. I think it could move a little faster if we're working together and all pointed in the same direction. I think it could be a little bit quicker.
Okay. But you're looking at, in your timeline, it looks like building permits weren't issued till June of 2024, so, right?
Yeah, I mean, we try to work it backwards from when
Yep.
town meeting would be in November, right?
Sure.
So, obviously, I don't think we'd be in a position to submit a project eligibility letter up until after that, so we assume January. 3 months, I think, is pretty typical for that.
Fingers crossed.
Roll it eyes, hopefully 3 months. And then, once we have that, we would finalize our building plans and everything for the formal submission, which we were targeting in July. And then, to Brian's point, I guess we had between July and January for the Board of Appeals and various reviewing boards to do their thing. To the extent that doesn't take as long, I think everything gets moved up a bit. But, we're trying to be transparent about it, not overly promise, but at the same time, try to be realistic about it.
Sure. Any questions from board members?
Just one question. You mentioned that you're going to forego the low-income housing tax credit. Was there a reason for that, or does it not work for this project?
Well, that would extend the timeline dramatically. I checked today, and the current process is anywhere from 2 to 4 years if the Department of Housing and Community Development has a highly highly ready project. So that's adding at a minimum 2 to 4 years. And we've, with the numbers that they spent a incredible amount of time at, we felt we could do without it and still be able to provide a couple of units at 60% of area median income.
Other questions?
In terms of some of the traffic study and planning around that intersection, I know you alluded it's pretty busy. In terms of construction, how would that sort of impact the neighborhood as construction is taking place for, it looks like maybe 16, 18 months of work?
Yeah, so I think we'd probably want to have a plan with Public Works, Police Department, Fire Departments, make everybody comfortable that we can work with everybody. We know that there's school early in the morning and kids walking, so we're aware of that. We need a plan for that. I think a plan including talking maybe with the neighbor that has the parking lot next door, that, you know, we can get some cars off the road that are workers, maybe have a staging area there. But you'll also notice our parking for this building is far away from the intersection on both ends of the building. And I mean, it worked best that way, but we also had that thought in mind to try to keep it away from the intersection, the parking. So I think all of those things come into play, a plan with the police department, the fire department, a plan for construction, staging, all of that, yeah.
Would this be a project that would be eligible for local preference? Would it be something you've been amenable to?
Local preference for the affordable housing units?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. 70% of the units can be occupied or go through a lottery process so that they can have benefit of that. So that would be for folks who live in town, employees, and which include all town employees, if there are businesses there, as well as school departments.
Great. Other questions? Well, thank you all for joining us this evening. We'll be tackling this over the next couple of meetings. And certainly be in touch if we have other questions. I do see some board members from other boards here. You know, we've asked for feedback from any boards by September 2nd, so that we can take up this matter on our next scheduled meeting on September 12th. So any feedback is welcome. Appreciate you all coming in this evening with the presentation.
Thanks. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, thank you. All right, we've got a busy agenda, so we're going to keep things moving. Next up, we're going to jump around a lot tonight, for the sake, we have a lot of visitors, so we're going to try to get people in and out. Unfortunately, you're all a captive audience here this evening, but we'll try to get our guests in and out. We're going to do committee and commission appointments. We have, first up, the Audit Advisory Committee. We have one position, an incumbent, Alan Briggs, for reappointment to a term that would expire on August 1st, 2025. Since it's reappointment, Mr. Briggs is not here this evening. Is there any?
Just cancel. These two are here.
Okay. Any discussion on Mr. Briggs being appointed to the Audit Advisory Committee for a second term? Hearing no discussion, is there a motion?
I move we appoint Alan Briggs to the Audit Advisory Committee for the term to expire August 1st, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Great, unanimous. Next up, we have two positions for the Cultural Council. I believe Diane Davies is here, and Armin Bagdasarian. I hope I pronounced it right. Bagdasarian. If you guys want to come up and join us, we're happy to interview you both. Thank you for coming in. Have a seat.
Just anywhere?
Anywhere's fine.
All right.
Just make yourself at home.
Hi, nice to meet you.
You too. Diane, so we have two positions. We have a student position open, and we have one open term to expire July 31st, 2025, that Ms. Davies you're applying for. So if you want to go first, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. I don't know if you've read my statement that I had given out, but I've been a lifelong artist. I've worked for magazines, have been a photographer here in town, was a freelance photographer through the Winchester Star, did portraits, so I feel like I know a lot of the people in town. I also worked at the Jenks for a couple of years in events, and was a liaison there. So when I saw this, and I was inquiring about Art in August this past spring with Sue Clark, because I know she's at Artist Network, she said that the Cultural Council was taking it over, so I reached out to Peter, wanted to help out there, did a little with him, which in such a big endeavor. I thought I would really like to be able to contribute more. I had to put artwork down for a while because of my children and for other reasons, and I really feel now that I want to come back to creating more art and also to maybe bringing some more life into Winchester. And I really loved the micro grants. I think that's a really cool idea, just little small things that could be great.
Thank you. Well, thank you for applying. Any questions for Ms. Davies?
No?
This guy's not falling.
Wait, I had one question.
Yes.
It's not for the chair position, correct? Because I know Peter was the chair.
No.
Okay, just checking.
Not yet.
I want to contribute, but I don't want to lead it.
So we leave that up to
Yeah.
the committee
All right.
themselves to elect a
Perfect.
chair. We're just going to, consider your appointment tonight to put you on the committee, and then you can be a voting member
All right.
of the committee.
Being chair is the punishment for doing a good job on the committee, so, that's what happens.
I'll keep that in mind. Okay.
Exactly. Okay, hearing no further discussion, we'll consider Ms. Davies' position first. If somebody want to make a motion?
Yep. I move we appoint Diane Davies to the Cultural Council for the term to expire July 31st, 2025.
Okay,
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Congratulations.
congratulations,
You're in.
thank you.
Turning to Armin, if you want to just introduce yourself, Armin, thank you for
Great.
joining us tonight.
So I'm Armin Bagdasarian. It's great to meet all of you. I'm, as most Armenians that you might know are, very, very passionate about my culture. While I'm not more so on the physical art side, I'm very much more into the musical art side. On the side, I play piano. I am in with Armenian ethnic music very much. That's mainly what I do on piano, and I don't play as much the duduk anymore, which was it's a wind instrument from Armenia, but it's sort of like a part of me that I think is just a huge part of my identity. On the side, I also help out with an Armenian school. It's not here, it's not in Winchester, unfortunately, it's in Belmont, pretty close by. Additionally, in general, I have experience through student government at the high school. I'm coming into my third year on the student council, where we've done a bunch of stuff. I know I highlighted one big example on the application form about building a mental health room, but on top of that, I've helped organize Night of the Arts, which is sort of in tandem with what the Cultural Council would usually do with their events. And in general, my main interest with this position has been, I know that there have been a lot of events that students have participated in, but I think having a student voice, an example would be, I think Porch Fest was a really big thing, and I know a couple student bands had joined, but I know a lot of talented musicians, and I think they could really, from the high school themselves too, that they could really contribute a lot if somehow there's more of a connection. And I sort of want to, give my own student connection to the high school so that more students can come in and, explore cultures, share their own cultures, see what, like, the diversity in the town that they might not see with just their eyes. Yeah.
Are you sure you sleep? You've got a pretty impressive resume for someone your age.
Thank you very much.
He's showing me up.
Nothing to take away from Miss Davies' resume, but I mean, this is, you're involved in a lot.
Definitely
So.
not be as much of an artist as you can in physical.
Well, don't give me an instrument.
Well, we appreciate your service. You're very involved. I mean, it's great to see people your age get involved, service above self. This is just another example of, a long resume of activities that you partake in outside of school, which is, kudos to you to find the time to do it. So,
Thank you.
very thankful for your service to this cultural council position. Sounds like you'll be a great fit, at least from my opinion. I'm sure I speak for all my colleagues with that.
Absolutely.
So, thank you very much for stepping up and doing this and being the liaison to those students at the high school, which, seem to be getting more and more involved in these types of activities outside of school, which is fantastic to see, the community come together like that. So thank you very much. It's always great to have a student representative in a lot of these committees, so thank you very much. Any questions, comments?
I'll just mention, I would be remiss if I did not mention that one. I have memories of being in high school and seeing Battle of the Bands in the town hall here in Winchester. So just as a
Do they still have Battle of the Bands? I don't know if I.
Depends on the year.
They did actually a few years ago. They were doing it out here in the library, and it during Town Day or something, right? And it was huge. It was like the most well attended event,
right.
and it moved around a little bit. So
There were different rounds of it too, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
There's just not one night, so.
What grade are you in?
I'm rising senior.
Senior, cool.
Well, thank you again. Is there a motion to?
Yep, I move we appoint Armin Bagnazarian as the student position for the Cultural Council with a term to expire July 31st, 2023.
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Congratulations to you both. Thank you very much for your
Thank you
service to
very
the town.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Good luck. You're all
What
set.
happens next?
Oh,
Oh.
I'll email you a letter tomorrow.
Okay.
And it'll give you, it's an appointment letter, and it gives you directions, and town clerk will actually send you all the links to open meeting law, et cetera.
All right.
And then you have to come and be sworn in by someone in the town clerk's office.
All right, thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think the Wildwood Cemetery Advisory Committee, we're going to postpone, is that?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Demir could not be here with us this evening for his interview. Next up, Sheila. We're going to go from Cultural Council to MWRA Loan and Advanced Borrowing.
Yeah.
We're
Good
multitasking.
evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Yeah, we have 3 projects that were approved at spring town meeting. One was MWA water bond for the lead water line replacement project. And then we're gonna have 2 advanced borrowings, one for the South Reservoir Dam planning project and one for the Parkhurst School planning project. All those were approved at Springtown meeting. So the MWA loan is a $600,000 10-year interest-free loan from the MWA, so it's a little bit less involved as our usual bond issues, because they've done the borrowings and then they loan to the municipalities. So it's, again, 10-year interest-free loan, and it's for the lead water line replacement projects. Do you want to take that vote separately before we do the advanced borrowings?
Sure, is there any
Because it is
questions?
separate.
Sure, we can do that. Any questions on that? Discussion? Great. Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Yes.
No, those are the other 2.
No,
Oh.
this one, right?
How
No,
much
big
does she
one.
have to read on the?
We have to read the whole
I
thing?
think you can, no, you can. This part and that part. Okay, and you can just say, they have listed below.
You can just say blah, blah, blah in the middle.
The Charlie Brown teacher voice.
Yeah,
Because it ends up attached to the minutes, you can just read those portions.
Sure. I move that we vote that the sale of the $600,000 water bond of the town dated August 22nd, 2022 to the Massachusetts Water Resources Authority The authority is hereby approved, and the town treasurer or other appropriate town official is authorized to execute on behalf of the town a loan agreement and a financial assistance agreement with the authority with respect to the bond. The bond shall be payable without interest on August 15th of the years and in the principal amounts as listed. Further, that each member of the select board, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing vote.
Second.
I think I need to do a roll call vote here, right? So,
Yeah, might as well.
Yes.
yep. So, Mike,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Anthea,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well.
And I'll leave the documents to sign when you're able to. And just as a reminder, there are 4 members here. We need at least 3 signatures on all of these borrowings.
Sure. So no one leaves without signing.
Yes, I have them here.
Next up,
So
Sheila.
the other 2 issues are advanced borrowings. What this does, allows us to borrow internally until the permanent borrowing is complete. We have a bond anticipation note that's outstanding, comes due in March, and the plan is to then permanently borrow the projects that are in that band together with these newer projects that we've authorized so that we can save money, condense the borrowing, do it at one time. So this will allow the projects to go forward and be funded prior to actually issuing the bond. One is for the Parkhurst School Planning, and that's in the amount of $169,750. And the other one is for the South Reservoir Dam Planning, and that is $470,000. What the form that you have, the Department of Revenue requires us to supply certain budgetary items, stabilization fund balances, unappropriated free cash, to show that in fact we have the funds, should we not end up borrowing, that we can, would be able to repay this money. So I think you have the two separate motions on that. Oh, unless there was any questions.
Any questions or
sorry.
discussion? Hearing none, we have motions?
I move that the select board vote to authorize the advance of funds in lieu of borrowing in the amount of $470,000 for the South Reservoir Dam Planning Project that was authorized by town meeting Article 13 on May 2nd, 2022.
Second.
Roll call vote, John,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Anthea?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
I move that the select board vote to authorize the advance of funds in lieu of borrowing in the amount of $169,750 for the Parkhurst School Planning Project that was authorized by town meeting Article 27th on May 9th, 2022.
Second.
Roll call vote, John,
Yes.
Anthea?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'll leave the documents with Patty to sign. There aren't too many tonight.
Great. Do you want to, we got a couple of minutes here. Do you want to do your town manager's report, Beth? Actually, before you get to your town manager's report, I think this would be a good opportunity just to discuss the events that happened last night at Shannon Beach. I don't know if anyone saw on the news, there was an altercation at Shannon Beach last night that involved several individuals and multiple agencies responding to an incident out there. Immediately, the town was in touch through Rep. Day's office with DCR last evening. And throughout the day today, I commend our police department working in conjunction with the Massachusetts State Police and Medford Police to take swift action at the Shannon Beach, which really is technically not our jurisdiction, but being so close to proximity, we're usually the first to respond, and my understanding is that our officers responded to 3 separate incidents over there this weekend, which has been, an escalating problem in that area. So last week, Rep. Day, about a week and a half ago, Rep. Day had a meeting out at Shannon Beach with DCR Commissioner Rice, and they came up with a plan to address, obviously water safety issues, which is what we had been hearing about, and parking lot matters that, have been going on late at night to be able to close the parking lot. I think those conversations were accelerating, and certainly the events of last night have accelerated those conversations either further. I did, be in touch with my Rep. Day's office today. I'm told that DCR will be installing gates that will close off that parking lot at night. Those should be up in the next week or so. There's going to be a meeting amongst the state police, Winchester Police, Medford Police as well, about coordination and efforts over there, patrols, increased patrols. It's a matter we take very seriously in this town. We're certainly, concerned about the escalation of violence and incidents and safety over at Shannon Beach, and we're working with our community partners such as DCR to address that as quickly as we can. But appreciate Rep. Day's office stepping in and being a liaison with DCR, and look forward to these ongoing dialogues to get the situation under control. It's certainly something that we've seen at several recreation areas throughout the Commonwealth this year. Revere Beach, Carson Beach, and certainly Shannon Beach is just a very popular area, and certainly with crowds there can be some issues. So it's something we're working on, and we'll continue to work on and make sure that families that use that recreation center and our neighbors that surround it are kept safe. So I don't know if any board members had any questions about that, but we will be preparing a letter, I think, to DCR, just requesting a meeting and just updates. But I know Rep. Day's office is already coordinating that. Any questions by any board members? All right. With that, Beth, if you want to give the rest of your town manager report.
So first item is we have an appointment. So in accordance with section 4-2B of the town charter, I have made the following regular full-time appointment in the comptroller's office to payroll manager of Kimberly Kaufman from Woburn. She's not expected to start until September 12th, so we don't need to waive the 15-day period. So this is just a FYI. I'm very happy to have that position filled in our comptroller's
Absolutely,
office.
yeah.
They've been,
I'm sure Stacy's very happy as well.
they've been all doing more than their fair share since Ellen left.
We have to
retired.
find something else for Stacy to do now.
That's right. So just a few other updates from non-agenda items. So there's been, at the last meeting, the board approved a voluntary water ban to recommend watering only on Saturday, Tuesday, Thursday before 9 a.m. and after 7 p.m. There's been no change in the state guidelines and really no change in the drought situation. We have gotten very little rain in the past 2 weeks, so we do encourage residents to help us conserve water and to take advantage of that voluntary water ban. There is some additional information on the town's website regarding conservation measures as well. We do have an all alcohol store license available. Applications will be accepted until noon on August 19th, and they can be submitted here to the town manager's office. On a more regional level, although not impacting Winchester necessarily directly, but I'm sure we've all heard the Orange Line will be shutting down for 30 days, fingers crossed, I think, starting at 9 p.m. on August 19th. So that will obviously have a huge repercussions for the region transportation needs. We do have one bus that goes through Winchester that does link to the Wellington train station on the Orange Line. So there's information up on the town's website. There's also a link to the MBTA website where they have a lot more information. It sounds like they are, there's a little bit of figuring things out as they go in terms of how the buses and the shuttles and the commuter rail will handle the excess traffic and passenger needs. There's a link to sign up on the MBTA website to receive updates if people are interested. So I think it's something that we all as a region will be looking forward to the completion of that and seeing what can be done to do that hopefully on schedule. There's also some impacts to the Green Line as well, which are tangential to that project. The upcoming state primary is scheduled for Tuesday, September 6th, which is the third day of school. The election will be held in the high school, as we did early this year for the local election. Certainly it's a challenge being the third day of school with that election being held in our schools, so we look for everybody to help us cooperate and with parking and take advantage of the early voting that will happen. So early voting will happen here in Town Hall in the Winchester room right next door on Saturday, August 27th, Monday, August 29th, Tuesday, August 30th, and Friday, September 2nd. Also, please take advantage of the vote by mail option as well. We have a lot of construction projects going on in town. Everything's kind of moving forward at this point. The Mystic School Sports Courts project is currently out for bid, and those bids will be opened later this week. The church at Waterfield project is complete except for some final pavement markings as well as the landscaping, which will be done early this fall once things cool off. We are looking forward to bringing the temporary pump station online out at the Arbor and Wendell Street neighborhood. The pump station is substantially complete at this point. We're just waiting for electricity, so we are working with Eversource and exploring options to get a generator ahead of time so that we can start that system up as soon as possible. We just received a grant notification from Mass DOT for our Woodside at Wildwood Street project, so we are working with the contractor to determine the start date for that project. Unfortunately, like many things in this world, there is a curbing shortage, so we're trying to evaluate our options to figure out if we can get that project done later this summer, early this fall. And then also we expect work to be starting later this summer and early fall on the Main Street Bridge railing repairs. And then just a few community notes. So we have a summer concert series. There's 2 weeks left, August 17th and 24th at 6:30 p.m. on the Town Common. The Winchester Public Library is having a program for end of summer reading on Saturday, August 20th at 11 a.m. School starts August 31st, so we have back to school, 2 days of school that first week, and then jump to the next week after Labor Day. And then also planning ahead for this fall, we're working with the Chamber of Commerce. We're holding the Spirit Night on Friday, September 23rd, and the 10th annual Glen Doherty race will be scheduled for September 25th. So a big weekend there. Thank you.
Got a couple questions.
Sure.
Is the upper end of Forest Street from Highland to the Stoneham line going to be repaved at some point?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the schedule is for repaving, but there is more work to be done out there. That's an MWRA project, which is a regional project where they're going through Stoneham and other communities as well. I know there is additional work to be done in that area, so I don't think
But
it'll
at
be
the
repaved.
conclusion, it will be repaved.
At the conclusion, it'll be done. It will be
Totally.
repaved, yes.
And is the cost of the generator for the pump station, is that figured into the budget? Is it going to be an overage on the budget?
So I haven't heard anything in terms of issues with the budget at this point. It would be a short-term rental for the budget for that project. So I think we can handle it within the cost.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? Just Beth, on the Church and Waterfield intersection, I know school's starting the 31st. Is there any way to put at least temporary markings where that crosswalk is? It's pretty.
Yep. They're hopefully getting out there. They've had some issues with scheduling their pavement marker. They're hopefully getting out there next week. But if it doesn't happen by next week, then I agree we should try to look at temporary markings.
Yeah, just the cars don't think there's a crosswalk there right now, so they don't
Yep,
stop.
that makes
so.
sense. Yep.
I'm just a little concerned with school starting. Great. All right. Moving on. Thanks, Beth, for everything. At this point, I'm going to open it up to public comment. As always, public comment on our agenda is acceptable. I would limit everyone to 3 minutes. If you want to make a public comment, I'd ask you to raise your hand, come up, have a seat at the table, state your name and your street, and we can go from there. So is anyone here for public comment? Come on in. Come on up. Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
Good.
This is good?
Yes.
It's my first meeting.
Welcome. That's
My
why I
name is
started.
Allison O'Brien. I live at 14 Manchester Road. I am here tonight about extending the lights till 10 p.m. I know you're voting on that. I sent a letter to you guys, which I believe is in the records as well. And I just wanted to reiterate to you some of the things that I feel as a person who came in after the debate of the big light debate. We moved in 4 years ago. The lights were already installed. We knew what we were getting into. We had no problem with it. We love sports. My husband, in fact, sits on our treehouse and watches football games. I just think the line comes when it's 7 days a week, and I think there's a way for all of us to work together here to limit the lights to, say, 4 nights a week, that they go till 10, so that we can work together and ensure that it's not 7 days that our houses are lit up, and it is like Friday Night Lights. I left the city. I lived in the North End in South Boston for 10 plus years, and I left the city, and sometimes it feels like I didn't leave the city. In fact, my places were less dim than they are when I live here in Winchester. And lastly, I have a son, and he is on the spectrum, and he has sensory issues, and his bedroom faces that field, and we do our best, and bedtime can be fun, as with any child, but honestly, like, having his room lit up until 10 PM when he goes to bed at 8, it just isn't right. And he's not the only kid in the neighborhood. It's a neighborhood full of kids. So I just ask you to consider that when making your decision, and think about how we can work together. And none of us is saying no. It's just saying, like, let's work together to make a decision together that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for coming here.
Anyone else here for public comment? Come on up.
There's not a sign in?
Nope. First come, first serve.
Thank you. Hi. I apologize. I'm going to read my notes. I just flew in last night from vacation to be here, and I was a little jet lagged. Chairman Mucci, Vice Chair Brady, members of the board, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Michael McLinden. I live at 410 Main Street. I'm a direct abutter of Knowlton Stadium. And like a lot of my neighbors, I'm here with a simple request, and that's that we slow down the rush to change the light and use policies for Knowlton Stadium to allow time for real consultation with the neighbors to arrive at a more considered and sustainable solution that better represents the interest of all stakeholders. As my neighbor just said, we're not here to say no, we're here to say no, not in a mad rush right now. And there's ample support for such a request, I believe. We've seen similar reprieves given in relation to proposed changes at both Mystic School and Skilling's Field. The supposed consultative process that was to take place on these changes has in reality been very limited. Most of us only learned of the proposed changes heading into the 4th of July weekend. Since then, our opportunities to have input to the field committee and the school board has been some at night, some in the day, some online, some offline. And it's taken even the most motivated of us to keep up with the different schedule and represent our interests. But mostly I'd like to point out, as somebody who's lived here now for over 25 years, that the history of Knowlton Stadium has been one of them marked by a series of rushed decisions, mostly that have failed to deliver on the promised outcomes. The original field modification plan, for those of you who are around, you'll remember, was rushed through under a special exemption. The town itself did a review and said the plan did not meet the requirements for parking. You might remember they had said that the parking at that time included Jenks Center and Shore Road and still did not have adequate parking capacity. It did not meet the town requirements for traffic flow, both in our neighborhood and along the Mystic Valley Parkway. And most of all, it didn't have the appropriate facilities in terms of bathrooms and changing facilities. Well, none of this has changed. The town rushed through the decision because the feeling was the natural grass field could not keep up with the demand. And the changes, we were told, would pay for themselves through increased capacity and reduced maintenance. The neighborhood impact we were promised would also be addressed. Well, we all know the capacity problem persisted, the field failed to pay for itself, and all the neighborhood concerns highlighted in the original town report have become manifest. As my neighbor just mentioned, when the lights were added, that was also rushed through in a series of summer meetings, with a promise to limit the use of lights till 8:30 at night, spring and fall, and a commitment to resolve once and for all the neighborhood issues. It's written into the language that you see here. There's nice language written into this report about mitigating neighborhood issues. We can tell you they haven't been mitigated. 15 years later, the capacity problems on the field still exist, right? Can't get in enough practices, we can't get in enough games. And it's been exacerbated by the fact that they've cut out capacity at other playing fields. We've lost playing fields at other facilities, and so this suddenly becomes our problem at Manchester Field. The field is still not paying for itself, and we, the neighbors, are still beset by the same issues: noise, traffic. We won't get into the graphic details of what people are doing in our yards and who we find inside our fences and walking through our side yards and backyards when there are events at the field. And so now here we are again. We're saying, well, let's rush it again. Why not? It's worked so well on the 3 other occasions that we've done this. Let's rush it again. And we're doing it in the heat of summer. This is now the 5th meeting in about 6 weeks or 7 weeks at the heart of vacation season. But the problem is it's not the summer we're talking about. We're talking about the school year. And during the school year, we're going to start to see the field active and lit until 9:45 or 10 p.m. at night well past the bedtime of most of the kids who live in our neighborhood. In fact, most past the bedtime of a lot of the parents. The director of Butter, I happen to know, gets up well before sunrise every day and hopefully is in bed well before the time that the lights go off. And there's a mistake that we think of, all right, well, it's the impact of the lights. I have to say, the lights were one of the best decisions ever made. They are beautiful. I go to a lot of athletic fields, and those are state-of-the-art lighting system. But again, they were rushed. Could we have set it up so certain lights could have been turned on and certain lights turned off? We didn't do that. Nobody had that idea. Could we have set it up so that we could address them remotely, like most of us can do from our home right now, get on our phone and change our thermostats or turn on the garage light? We can do that in our homes. We can't do that at Knowlton Stadium. And the main thing, too, is we're talking about late at night, every night of the week. Come to us at Thursday and Friday nights. I don't know if everybody here would agree that. I'm like, fine. Friday night football games are a ball. It's so exciting to see that. Sunday night, you want somebody outside your yard at Sunday night at 10 o'clock? Because if the lights go off at 10 o'clock, the people are getting to their cars and changing their clothes and peeing in our bushes until 10:30, right? So you go to bed knowing that's out there. You go on a business trip knowing your wife knows that's out there when she's trying to shut down the house at night. The other thing is, based on the history, if we approve, let's say 10 o'clock, we all agree, hey, we're going to suck it up and do it. There's nothing in the history of Knowlton Stadium to say that it's going to stay at 10 o'clock. We're going to be back here in 18 months talking about 11 p.m. or midnight because there's still teams that have to be accommodated. There's still revenue that could be generated. The only thing standing between us and that happening are the promises and the goodwill that have gotten us where we are here, which is to say, not a lot. Bottom line, can we just take a deep breath and figure out the way to do this right? Most of you look like you're dressed for business. How do you do this in your jobs? Do a couple of people come up with an idea and ram it through? Every opportunity we have had here to voice our opinion has not been seen as an opportunity for input. It's been seen as an opportunity for the proponents on the sitting boards, the field committee, the school board, to swat away our proposals. My neighbors can attest. We sit here and we say, we have an issue with this. Swat, we'll take care of that. We have an issue with that. Not a problem. The point is, there is nobody in any here, even here, with the authority and the resources to deliver on everything that they say they're going to deliver on. Parking, it's one person's problem. Traffic, it's another person's problem. Signage, I know somebody will take care of that. The janitor at the school bus drivers. There are so many different moving pieces here, and although there are a lot of opinions, there is nobody willing to take the ultimate responsibility for ensuring that all of those things work together. So, just to wrap up, speaking for myself, my wife, my kids, most of the people who I speak with every day and walking around the neighborhood, we are fans of the field. We are sports lovers. Nothing makes us happier. I just came back from there, and it looks like there are captains' practices for the soccer teams. Great. I mean, just if you're a sports lover, there's nothing you love to see more than the beginning of the season. We simply believe that before we move on, we should have some broader agreement on what this field is, the box that it's in, the rules that will guide its moving forward, and some sort of way that we, as the abutters, have safeguards in the neighborhood to keep us from bearing the brunt, as we have over and over, of bearing the brunt of poor decisions and poor planning and poor forethought. These are conversations, they don't have to take long. As I understand it, the field is being torn up in the next few weeks based on one of the other discussions you're having here tonight. What is the rush to make this decision? Couldn't we bring us together and have a discussion that says, what do you guys need? What do you want? How can we accommodate it? I think it's time that we stop careening from one mad rush of a decision to another, as we've been doing with Knowlton Stadium throughout its history, and come together as neighbors and just figure it out. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Anyone else for public comment? Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm just going to be looking at notes on my phone if you don't mind. My name is
Sure.
Sarah Kalala, and I live at 16 Manchester Road, so I'm a direct abutter. I live right next to the field. So again, I'm kind of reiterating what my neighbors have said, but the problem I think that I have is just the possibility of the lights being on that late till 10 o'clock, 7 days a week, any season. Again, we love the football games. I have 2 school-age children who participate in sports, but it is a huge interruption to our lives when the lights are on that late. They shine directly into our home with shades. I have a husband who wakes up, he goes to work very early, has to be there at 6 a.m. As I mentioned, I have children that do need to go to bed. With the lights comes the noise. It's not just the lights, it's the noise, it's the parking, it's the traffic. And what I've noticed, I've lived there for 3 years, is what happens is once the lights go off, it's not that kids automatically disappear. They hang out. They urinate against my fence. They urinate on my property. They throw garbage around. And I know that could be another problem entirely, right? But with the lights being on, the possibility till 10 o'clock for how many nights a week, right? Whatever season, I think we're going to see an increase of that. And it is a huge disruption to our lives to deal with. I'm trying to think. 1 second, there might have been one other thing. I think that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello, my name is Ian Phillips. I live at 10 Manchester Road. I have spoken with some of you have not. But I can reiterate, I have records back to 1991, where we were looking at the exact same problems. In 1991, when they wanted to put in the lights in 91, same issues were discussed. Financials, it wasn't viable for the town. We said that every year since then, every time we've come before this board in public meetings. It's not viable. It's been proven. We've said it, and it's proven itself out. Changing the hours from 8:30 to 10, not going to make more money. The rec director said maybe $30,000 more. At whose expense, $30,000 more? Garbage and trespass, we said it was going to get worse. Hello? It's the same or worse. And when you add an attractive nuisance till 10 o'clock at night, it will again be worse again. Honestly. Parking. I've shared photos with the school committee. I've shared photos with the chair of the board. Show the lights on people's houses, how lit up their houses are in the light versus the dark. Cars parked on both sides of the road in both directions. Cars going the wrong way. Parked under no parking signs, on the grass, on people's yards, next to the hydrant. And unfortunately, we brought to the board, both the school committee and this select board many times, the issue of a possible emergency. What would happen in the event of an emergency? I shared photos with the chair of the select board, not the current chair, but a previous chair of the select board, with an ambulance that was at the field to pick up a child who was injured. And the ambulance could not get through the street. What if that was your kid? How would you feel about that? Think about it for a minute. Your child can't get to the hospital because people are illegally parked and blocking the road. We brought that to the attention. I wrote to the chair of this board 2 or 3 times asking to have a meeting, and you know what I got in response on the second or third request? Please bring it up at public meeting. I think it's more than public comment period. We asked for maintenance of the field. 2018, I sent an email to the school committee because people were only practicing on the southern end of the field, next to the homes. Why? Because there's netting there. Kids don't want to have to chase the ball on the north side of the field. 2018, I got a response from the head of the DPW and the school superintendent. We're getting a bid for that. That'll get repaired. 2022, and nothing has been done about that. My neighbor was nice enough not to comment on the fact that the lights were broken for 6 months and shining into his house. What about that? How would you feel about that nuisance in your life? The lights every night shining into your house for 6 months because they don't have the time to get them addressed and fixed? That's absurd. We already have light trespass. The town has allowed light trespass in violation of its own ordinances so there can be lighting on this field, and we can't even maintain it. So now, we've asked for maintenance, we've asked for parking, we've asked for safety. We've done all of those things. This select board told us to reach out to you and tell us when there's a problem. I have over 100 emails to this select board, to the chair of the select board and the school superintendent with violations and problems and everything else. And it's less than this many times that I've gotten a response. That's not responsiveness from my boards. So, we're here again. Again, we're here. We're told we need more fields. Think about this for a minute. Every time I go to one of these meetings, somebody from lacrosse, the head of lacrosse, says our enrollment has increased 3 times, tripled. Well, if you triple it 3 times over the last 10 years, that's a 27-fold increase in demand. I don't think that's true. I think it's just recycling the same information over and over again so that the field committee can get what they're recommending. We need your help. We need you guys to step up and stop this. We're not saying no to these things. We're saying, could we have a meeting? Don't show up on my doorstep, on the 4th of July weekend and fail to tell me that there's a meeting that was supposed to happen after 12 months and then it was supposed to happen, for this program. That's not part of the community. That's not thinking about who we are and where we live. So here we are, right? We're going from 2 seasons to all seasons. That's what's in the recommendation. We're going from 6 nights a week to 7 nights a week. We're going from 8:30 to 10 o'clock at night. By my calculations, a 460% increase in the use of lights in my neighborhood, in our neighborhood. Really? If the head of the rec department thinks that he can go and sell 460% increase in services, God bless, he should work for somebody else where he can make good money in sales. 460% increase. That's all on us. And we need your help not to allow that to happen. People are putting their kids to bed. They should be able to put their kids to bed before 10 o'clock at night, 7 nights a week, 365 days a year. I don't want to hear about the holidays. Oh no, we don't do it on the holidays. The field was rented out with lights on Yom Kippur, the most holy of Jewish holidays. Really? I'm sorry about that, Mr. Phillips. That was an accident. I get it, but you know what? It's an important accident. We don't get response from this board. We don't get response from the school committee. So fundamentally, I'll end here. We respectfully ask that you do something. And what I'm asking for tonight is to send this proposal back. Not to say no, send it back and say, you know what? You, field committee, need to go and meet with the community. You need to talk to the people that live there that are adversely affected by this, that you're going to add 460% more light on their homes. Just stop and ask them to do that. Listen to what we say. Help us we followed what you guys exactly told us to do when it came to filing for resident parking only. And you know what happened? That would be 0. The traffic board said, we're not going to take that up. We're not bringing it up to the select board. Stand up for us. You want things from us, and all you do is take from us. So really, send them back. Tell them to meet with the neighborhood together for a workable plan. How much better would it be if I didn't have to come here and say these things like this? It would be much better if we could come here together as a plan saying, this is what we all agreed to.
Mr.
Deliver
Phillips,
us the parking
I'm
residents.
going to ask you to wrap up.
2 more points, thank you, though.
And just for the record, you and I met for over an hour about 2 weeks ago.
That is correct.
Okay.
And just for the record, the chair of the school committee refused to meet with me. So I appreciate very much the people that are willing to meet. So tell them to meet with the neighborhood and work together for a deliverable plan. Deliver your promises on parking and safety. Deliver those. And fix the equipment so that it's not, so you're not forcing it. I asked the kids that were out there, boys soccer captains practice, how come you practice on the south side of the field? I don't know. That's where the captain told us to go. Captain, go to the north side of the field. They could do that if there was netting. Make it easy for us to say yes. Light only half the field. They only use half the field for practice. Why does it have to be the southern half? Let's make things that work for the community, that allow people to make money and do these things. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about any of the facts that I've shared, because they are all facts.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else here for public comment? Come on up. Just state your name and your street and...
Yeah, my name is Nate Lusk. I live on Manchester Road, like a bunch of other folks here. I'll start off with this. So, I'm from the town of Stowe, Vermont. My dad was on the select board for 13 years. Mom was part of the historic commission. I understand the position all of you are in right now. I had an idea of why wouldn't we put a billboard on the side of City Hall? Like this beautiful building, why wouldn't we put a billboard up on it and rent it out? Because after all, we're looking for money for kids, right? Like ostensibly, we're trying to generate money for sports. We could probably generate $5,000 a month off that, and that would pay for the turf. But the obvious answer is it would be a blight on the town. And so obviously you wouldn't do that. It would make it a less attractive place to live. So when you drop a Walmart's worth of parking lights into the middle of our town and you let them stay until 10 o'clock every night, it's a blight on the town. My parents spent 20 years as the old guard of Stowe, which is what has made it such a beautiful town to visit. And you guys have a responsibility to keep Winchester as an attractive place to live. I understand your position of having to balance the needs of the recreation programs with all of the residents, not just the residents on Manchester Road. And that's all I wanted to say, was just to balance the interests of everybody. You guys are the new old guard. That's it. Thanks.
Anyone else here for public comment? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Chun Yao Cao. Actually, I live at 8 Manchester Road. I just moved in 2 years ago. I'm coming here to support my neighbor. I think I was here actually a couple weeks ago when actually the committee, the field committee actually had the meeting. Unfortunately, I was not being notified. Actually, I was notified by my neighbor actually because there's a meeting. But I think this is actually, I would like to actually ask the board to consider, because really actually there's not a lot, there's only a request for more revenue, more field time, but not consider a lot of actually like traffic, safety, all the others consideration. It's not actually for the neighbor to propose, to counter-propose those. I think this should come in as a package. And I think from the return of investment standpoint, we don't know actually at whose expense that can bring in additional 30,000 revenue down, 30,000 revenue based on the field select, the field committee director. So I really want to actually to consider, actually have you to consider to push this plan back to the committee, have them to have more thorough plan to think about actually how we can compensate actually the neighborhood's concern, and also actually can bring additional field time and the revenue to the committee. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Doesn't just have to be on lights. We have other stuff to talk about tonight. Okay. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comment at this point. And we're going to go right into the Manchester Field lighting policy, since I think so many people are here for that. So with that, I just want to, Beth, clarify. So the field policy that we have before us has been amended by the school committee, if I have that correct. So what they amended was that that the lighting time would now, rather than 10 o'clock, they would be off no later than 9:45 p.m. with the lights dimming 15 minutes before 9:45 p.m. off time. So, am I understand that correctly? The lights dim at 9:30 and they are off at 9:45. Is that what the school committee
It's my understanding.
voted?
Yes.
Okay, and that was what was sent to us. So, we have the field policy as submitted in our packets. To consider tonight the amended policy with that one change that the school committee made. So the way the process works is the field committee meets, they make a policy, they amend the policy, it then goes to the school committee for a vote, and then it comes to us as the last stop for a vote as well. If it passes, then it becomes policy. With that, I would open it up to the board for discussion.
I'm not well enough informed on this relative to the neighbors to vote in support of it until I get more comfortable with it. So that's just where I'll be at.
Okay. Anyone else?
One thing I will say, Rich, and I'm not sure about this, and I know Mr. Phillips had mentioned it, but what is the status of parking along Manchester Road? It seems like there's an opportunity for us just to have that parking limited to resident only just after 8:30, and then forcing anybody that rents after that period of time to use McCall parking lot, which is going to be empty for the most part. And that's, seems within our purview to do, because I know that for a lot of residents I spoke with, it's the increased activity. What I'm hearing is increased activity as well as the lights being on themselves. So, and I've noticed just with the basketball court project too, playing basketball down there. As you see, that part of the fence was opened up, and it actually closer to Mystic Valley Parkway, and it really, and with the new bench that was installed there and the courts, now everybody's really been parking on Mystic Valley Parkway because of that access there. So I think there's some things that we can do to really relieve the parking on Manchester Road, and maybe even say that we're not going to maybe if we're going to wait to vote on this, it sounds like we may. But that maybe we don't book, every single day of the month straight through. Maybe we have a couple days here and there, or we don't say that we can't have, 10 days consecutively booked or something. So we can kind of plan a little bit around that if there are days that we don't schedule or there's not an interest from a vendor. So, but that's all. I definitely have, heard quite a bit from the residents on this, and I think it was a good amendment from the school committee to have a 9:30 stop time.
Yeah, I mean, just responding to some of those statements first, and then I'll let you go. Obviously, I think it was, a good amendment by the school committee. What I've heard most in the written correspondence that we've had, in the meetings I've had, and, hearing, going through this process, is, there's the policy and then there's operations, right? And what, we even heard tonight, sending this back to the field committee, management committee, concerning, a policy that, works for everyone. Well, that's really not the field management committee's job. That's our job,
Right.
and to the extent that we've in the past haven't been prudent to address these operational concerns, and I was just writing them down as we went, safety, traffic, encourage the use of the north side of the field, public urination, garbage, parking, noise issues, trespassing on property, this is an attractive nuisance, emergency vehicle access, repair the netting, a light broken, shining on someone's, directly into someone's house for 6 months. That's not, no light policy, no field policy is going to address any of that. That is an operationals issue. So I think, in my opinion, we have our policies, and we've got a lot of policies in this town, and a lot of committees, policies, and everything. But, at some point, those policies are, only paper, right? It's about operation. And where I think there's a disconnect here is, in terms of operations. So, I think we could have any policy we want, but it's in terms of, what do we do with it from an operational standpoint? And I think that's where, the disconnect is, and that's where we've had some shortcomings. And I think a lot of this stuff that, we've heard about, in writing here tonight during this process is certainly in our purview as a select board.
I agree. My point, if we can't execute operationally with the current policy, why would we expand it?
Well, I think no matter whether we expand it or not, we need to address this stuff, right?
I'm not saying that. I'm just logically.
So I think logically, there's a need. Okay, we have, youth teams that are traveling out of the town to practice, and it becomes a quality of life issue for a lot of our youth teams, right? They're traveling to Danvers, they're traveling to Westford, they're squishing them, and a safety issue over on Skillings. Also consistency, right? We want, policies that are consistent. So we also have, kids that are, because of, this end of school start time and the need to jam in practices,
right,
they are literally rushing over to Manchester Field and literally leaving their car wherever they can find, 6 feet to park it. Or, rushing over, speeding over to get to practice, jamming kids in the car. I mean, completely unsafe. And that's because, their practices are starting, minutes after school gets out. So this gives us a little flexibility in terms of games and practice start times. So, but from an operations standpoint, yeah, I mean, I think there's
So this is not something to address a revenue for the recreation department. This is to address an exposure presented by the school.
I think it's several components.
But is there one primary?
Yeah, there's a need for increased lighting and increased practices in town.
No, but is it the students, Winchester students, or is it third parties renting the field is my question. Maybe that's,
When you say students, I mean, yes, elementary, right now there's no room for elementary kids to get on that field after high school is done with it on a weeknight.
Elementary kids aren't going to be there.
What?
At the late hours, but.
Like when I say elementary, middle school, youth, youth soccer, youth lacrosse, football, there's no use for it. I mean, there's no place to have those practices. So, I mean, I'm not, I think we have very limited, and Nick's here, I think we have very limited third-party rentals at night. We're talking about in-town organizations being able to use this field, is my understanding.
Yep. Okay. And it has to be that way, actually, right? So the way that it.
Right, there's a hierarchy,
set-
yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So, but in terms of, all these operational points, this is, frankly, it's a separate discussion. I mean, it's a discussion that we need to have with the police department, we need to have with DPW, we need to have it with the athletic director of the high school, superintendent, we need to have it with ourselves and our staff. I mean, but there's, these all need to be addressed. And, frankly, what I'm hearing is they haven't been. So, so that's where I'm able to separate policy versus operations.
I think in light of the concerns and in in separating the two of those things, the policy does, those two things sort of connect to each other but are not driving, it makes more sense to address the concerns first, because there's going to be a lot less, it's going to be a lot less welcome to add a policy if those concerns are not addressed. And if we're hearing there's parking issues, there's trash, there's all of this, we're not gonna fix it if we change a policy and add another hour. I think some of these things need to be resolved beforehand. I think we have a kind of an opportunity at this point. The field is going to be redone this fall. There's, no one's going to need to be playing under lights at 9 o'clock at night on the field this fall. We have some time to think about resolving the concerns prior to the policy.
Well, the field's going to be out of commission for a couple of weeks. I would say not at all. But in terms of, well, I guess my point is, in order to address these, it's not sending it back to field management. They don't address this. This is us.
I'm not proposing that. Like, we're adults, we should fix it.
Yeah. I think that's fair. What I will say is that, until we have a question of increasing the light policy, we don't hear about these other things, right? So operationally, it's difficult for us to respond in real time. Certainly, as I said, I'm down there on the courts a lot. I see the police, circle the block on Winchester Road a lot. In fact, some people that park where they shouldn't are always running off the court to move their car, and slowly that has an impact. So I think that operationally, with some vigilance, and I know that I think we've hired someone, Nick, is that right, to kind of manage the times, and I think that can also be a little bit more on the enforcement side, something that we're more aware. We didn't have that before, so it was just very freewheeling, right? We kind of hope you shut the lights off, and we hope you do these things, but maybe if we require deposit of people that are there, and if they're leaving trash, if they and they do it at Winchester Community Park as well when they rent. So I've seen that when I have a game first thing in the morning over there with the kids, that we've got to clear all the junk off the field. So I think there's operationally a lot that we can do to be more vigilant and have an ongoing conversation with the neighbors. I appreciate that they say, well, that's what you told us last time, I guess we just need to show what our plan is to deliver on some of our promises, independent of the field time being extended to 9:30, which I think is the right solution. So those would be my only comments.
So there's two ways we can do this. We can table the policy and, put together a plan to address some of these items as best we can. Some of these items, we're not going to be able to address. But we can certainly address a lot of them. And the other avenue is that we could, vote the policy and, continue, MC Jay here. I'm not sure what Jay's here for. You're here for one of these things. There's a lot of things we're here for.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to address the trash pickup problem.
Sure.
I haven't had a call from the residents in a couple of years due to trash. I've increased the trash pickup 7 days a week. I walk that field 5 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning myself and walk and check the field. So I disagree with the residents in the past couple of years. We've addressed that. I've addressed the no parking. Every time the residents called, I've addressed it. Sometimes it may take longer for equipment to come, but the DPW has addressed every problem they've ever had. We do signs, we trim around the edges, we paint the no parking. So I've addressed a lot of these issues. So I take offense to that. They feel that the trash cannot be picked up. I had to increase the overtime down there. So I feel we're doing a good job. And I'm down there 5 days a week. For 5 years, I've been walking that field, making sure there's no trash there. That's all I can say.
So, Rich, maybe, if we vote to, approve the policy time to 9:30, subject to, coming up with the neighborhood kind of impact plan around these issues, and have that at our following meeting. So, but it's subject to, so we've got to figure that out before it happens. So that's what I would say. So we can get the light policy part of it, the increase out of the way, and then really focus on what the residents need. And certainly we can, I think we've heard their concerns, as far as, we can engage with them more on it if we'd like to. But I feel like kind of making some firm commitments around the parking on Manchester Road, what our commitment is on the trash, and I do feel like it's fair to say, we can't book for more than X amount of days in a row, or there's got to be a breather, I think, there for because I think that fear is real. It's going to be a brand new field. The lights are brand new. It's there's space. I mean, I know for my kids when I coach soccer, I mean. And I've called Nick before, like, what is there really no space in town for us to play? When you're playing at Morocco and it's just all dirt, it's rough. So I think the demand will be there, but I think that there can be an opportunity for us to meet that demand with making the blow not as severe.
Nick, do any of our lighted fields, are they on 7 days?
They're all on 7 days a week except for Manchester right now.
To the maximum time?
What was that?
To the maximum time?
Yeah, there's no, the off time is 7 days a week for all of our lighted fields. So West Side is 10 p.m., Cha-Cha is 9:30, yeah, Cha-Cha.
But none of those fields have a butters like we do. On that play on our side of the house, 2 feet away from the field.
So
They're all different.
There are 10 houses closer to the field than the library is to this room. If there were a game going on at the library right now, would it affect what's going on in here? There are 50 houses within a couple of hundred
okay,
cars.
I've heard you. I'd ask the audience to be quiet and let us have our meeting and discuss this. Thank you. One question for you, Jay, is there's a gate on Mystic Valley Parkway and that green fence that's, seems to be permanently locked or rusted shut.
I believe we opened it.
Is it open now?
We opened it 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Are we replacing that? Or?
The abutters asked
Sorry.
us if that could be opened, and we responded and opened it a couple days later.
So with the new replacements of turf, a new fence will be going up all around the whole field.
Is that 4 foot or 8 foot, that fence?
I believe it's a 4 foot.
Just around the turf field, not around the perimeter of the entire.
I thought that.
Just replacing the 4-foot fence that's around the interior
I believe
field.
there's could be changed by the Second Amendment of that. But could be wrong, but.
We also have in there fixing the netting. The netting's being fixed, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we've addressed the netting. Access, I mean, I think one neighbor brought up, at least publicly or privately, that, that gate open on Manchester Field would help, because people, so you don't have to walk the whole length of the fence to get in. It's not like a prison.
One way would solve the neighbor's problems, but they don't want, I can understand why, because they want to be able to cut through. There's a nice walk to go down the center. But if you lock that gate, you lock it in Main, the other gate will be fixed when we do the new gate outside. But one of the things we thought about, like closing the gate at certain hours during the day, right after school stops, and then sports start, we shut that gate, so cars can't park there, they have to go all the way around. It'd be a little different policy, you'd have to have a custodian or the coach, shut that gate right after school gets out, and then there'd be no reason to go down Manchester Road. The other thing we do, and wasn't brought up here, during major events at night, Thanksgiving, soccer, football, we shut down the resident-only signs on 2 ends of Mystic, Cotton Street, Manchester. We don't do it. We haven't done that at any other fields in town. That's another thing we addressed. Can't talk about the police, but during those events, we have police officers walking around making sure that kids are not urinating in the houses, you know, that's a problem, I agree with them. So those are things, we put a couple of porta potties. We do have 2 bathrooms, they really can't see, I agree with the residents, that we need to put signage up. But we are trying to make improvements in the field to make it more access for kids to do the right thing and not kick the ball over to that house that we replaced a lot of the windows there in the past. I feel for that person, that's a problem.
So could we, is this time sensitive from the,
Yes.
if we postpone it for until the 12th?
Yep.
That's going to be a hardship on a significant group
Well,
of
I
people?
think the idea was that and Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but the athletic director wanted this, and the schools wanted this set when school started.
That was the original plan, to have it set for the school year.
For the
To
school year.
schedule fall sports and,
Fall
you know,
sports, yeah.
so.
We wanted the extra time. I mean, the field is getting worked on in the middle of October, so we have September and October for scheduling purposes. It would make a little bit of a difficulty in moving some things around.
So, question for both of you, sorry, John, before, I was just gonna ask this question. Do we contract with a company, you know, once a year, twice a year to calibrate those lights?
Yeah, we have, you know, a 25-year warranty that would come in, that resident who was getting that light shining, was the lower light. It was a problem trying to get parts for it. It was a long time. I'm not disagreeing with that, but we repaired it. So, yeah, we have a 25-year warranty. They will come in, you know, as much as we need them to come in. That was a problem that it took a long time.
Does somebody come, like, are we proactive? I mean, do we have somebody that comes and looks at the lights and make sure they're all calibrated correctly and stuff?
We can do that. We haven't, the main lights haven't been calibrated. The lower lights have.
So Jay, do we, from like a light pollution standpoint, as far as like trying to minimize that, on, you know, keep it only on the field, do we look at that? I mean,
Yeah, we haven't looked at it since we turned them on, but during the process, we had the neighbors, they were all there. I was in all their backyards, and yeah, we did it the first time. We haven't done it since. It'd probably be a good idea to have it.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe we'd do that.
So can we see if there's a the company either that installed them or a repair company that can come once a year or twice a year to maintain the lights?
They'll do it.
And we can manage those remotely though, can't we, those lights? I thought we could. Okay, I know that was something that we made sure that we got.
We can do it, Nick, in this,
Marguerite, right?
We can shut them off.
So we know who to blame, and that's good.
I can shut them off on my cell phone.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Jay, when you say 7 days a week garbage pickup, is that, you know, in the morning emptying the trash barrels? What are we
Yeah, I think we
doing?
go around to all the fields, you know, especially those 2 fields. It's pathetic. There was a lot of trash there probably a couple of years ago, and it was a problem, but I feel like I addressed it and added more time with the trash truck. It was there every Saturday and Sunday, and then we do it 2 to 3 days a week. But when there's a lot of tournaments, the basketball produces a lot of trash down there. During their camp, we added trash receptacles. But I've addressed, in my opinion, like I said, I'm down there 5 days a week at 5 o'clock in the morning for 5 years now, and I make sure, because there was a problem. I feel like I've addressed it. Is it perfect? Probably, you know, every field needs to be on every field 7 days a week for multiple hours.
So in terms of, the only thing that, you know, would take time and consideration would be, you know, looking at the parking on Manchester Field. That would be a process that we would need to undergo, whether, you know, if that was to make that residents only or, you know, some type of, you know, hybrid use, but that would be, you know, that's a process that we would need to engage in. So that would be, time consuming.
I would just say neighborhood only after 8:30. I mean,
Right.
I think that-
But we have to engage in that process.
PM or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just, sorry. Yeah, I mean, to really handle the kind of delta between the change of the lights.
So looking at this list, so in terms of public urinations, we're looking at putting in some porta potties down there.
We have already. We addressed that, well, we addressed the porta potties.
All right.
They're there from.
Garbage, we're picking up 7 days a week now. Okay. The netting, you know, that encourages people, you know, people why they kind of congregate to that south end zone. We're addressing that in our next rehab project.
They will have them on both sides. We addressed the existing one, that's been problems too, but a lot of that.
You have notes to, you know, by our next meeting, Beth, if you could report on the town manager side with Jay, just a company that can come calibrate the lights and what the cost is for that. Right?
Yeah.
Great. Parking, that's something we're gonna have to, start that process, whether it's a meeting with the police and DPW or Beth as engineer, not as town manager, make some recommendation to us to address parking. As Mike says, maybe it's some type of hybrid.
I think it's important, Chair, if I may, is
Yep.
to make sure the schools understand that the coaches and all that need to address them when the kids come down, not go down Manchester Road or Cutting Road, they should be going to the, so that's been a problem.
And Nick, you're in charge of scheduling, right? Outside the high school, the buck stops with you, right? So, in terms of lights on, for the Jewish holidays, giving a breather as we've talked about, that's, something operationally we can address with you. What am I missing?
Signage.
Signage, yeah.
We're working on the signages. We have some things drawn up that we're gonna pass through field management, DPW.
Okay.
That's one of the things that others wanted us to have more signage.
The other thing too, I would say, and the signage is going to evolve if we change policy, but if there are kind of non-resident rentals, people from outside the community that are renting, and there should be some sort of deposit if there isn't already, for cleaning, whatever. If they leave it a mess, they're going to be less inclined to take care of it if they're just coming in and out. And so maybe that's part of the contract with them, that they've got to park at McCall if it's after 8 p.m. or whatever we say, and there's got to be a $100 deposit or something like that for cleaning that they get back with each rental, as long as it's approved. And we now have somebody that's there on a much more regular basis, right? That's
We have now
on the enforcement side.
Yeah, we have a field marshal.
A field marshal
For the first time. Starting in 2 weeks. So, that's something this town's never had before. So we'll have some, more enforcement.
marshal?
Yeah. You didn't apply for the job?
That's like World War II.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's, that's what we're addressing.
Yep.
So, I don't know what, again, operational side. So from a policy standpoint, I get the brightness, I've heard that, but, at the same time, there's a need. So, this wouldn't be put forward if there wasn't a need. Like I said, we're the last stop, which has been approved by the school committee and the field management committee. So we could table this till September 12th, or, we can pass the policy, and get an update on September 12th on all this stuff that we just talked about, to make sure that, this is all implemented, and some of this other stuff. Nick, maybe you come up with some type of, if we do pass this, that we, come up with some, gauge the interest and come up with some type of rotating, give a break here and there kind of thing. Or, you could find that there isn't a need till 9:30. Maybe there's a need till 9. I don't know. But gauge the parties and interest, that what's out there. So what does the board want to do with this?
I think that last point that you mentioned is probably the critical part that needs to be addressed within the policy. That is not of, theoretically, there is 7 days a week until 9:30, 9:45 that there's lights. Probably it's not that case, and not knowing the need, but there seems that there could be some sort of mechanism within the policy that directly limits the number of days or hours within a season, so that it's not potentially at risk of having that extended period of lights, but has something within that that really limits and addresses the concerns of, is it every day that houses are lit up until 10 o'clock at night?
Well, I think right now we're considering it's 9:30.
Not,
right
yeah,
now.
9:30, but.
Still, you get the point.
Yeah, because there is demand for it on Friday, Saturday and Sunday nights by in-town residents.
Periodically, I gauge it on what we get at Skilling's lighted field, and it's periodically. It's more in demand Monday through Friday, more so in the spring than the fall, because we have so many sports in the spring. Right. It's too packed, and we really need that extra time in the spring. We will get periodic use in the summer and in the winter, but very, very, very little.
So there could be an opportunity in there to abate the use of it somewhat and give the neighbors a break.
Yeah.
Right. That's what it sounds like. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth.
I think the demand will naturally be that way, because we have asked the users what they need, what they're looking for, and at some of the field management committees, some of the user groups have discussed what they would need it for.
Yep. That makes sense.
So my preference would be to vote the policy and get an update on all this at our next meeting, but I leave it to everyone else's discretion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, I do, like I said before, I mean, I think that we need to make it, subject to these changes and coming back on September 12th, our next meeting, to vote, that change in.
And John, why I say that is, and the same thing is, if we make changes to it, it's now gonna go back.
No, that's fine.
Down the train. Whereas, and those groups don't have the authority to make these changes that we do. That's the thing. I mean, they're kind of handcuffed.
No, that's fine. We did what we said we were going to do with the neighbors at the Mystic School, right?
Yep.
And so I feel that for anybody in the audience, that should be your assurance that we'll do the same thing as it respects you folks. Because you can see that we care, we have a debate about it, and we're going to take action. And I'm a checklist guy. We have 10 items, and who's going to own it, and then we'll report back. And then by the 12th, we'll have a report back on the 10 items on that list we're supposed to be addressed that we warranted to you that would address. Now, hopefully they'll be to your satisfaction. Maybe there'll be a couple open items, but I expect that it'll be to your satisfaction. And then we live with it for 3 or 6 months, and then if we have to revisit the policy, then we will. But, I can't speak to other boards, what they've done, they haven't done, and frankly, I'm not going to do that.
The policy says, in all due respect, the policy says that after the first 12 months, this board and the school committee were supposed to have a meeting to discuss the effectiveness of it. It's in the policy.
No, I understand.
That has been removed from the policy. There is no, the problem, in all due respect, I get it, but we're talking about 7 days a week till 10 o'clock at night, 365 days a year.
Okay.
And
We should just vote this.
So I'm gonna cut this off. So Jay and Nick, can you be at our September 12th meeting with an update on this?
Yes.
Thanks.
So can I just move the vote on the change to 9:30, so that
Yes.
piece of it, because as you said, the field management committee and school committee are going to say, well, we don't want to talk about stuff that has nothing to do with us, right? So, and I think that's in our lane to make some.
Well, that's
some
my
tough
point, is all
decisions.
this has nothing to do with any of them. It has to do with us.
Right.
It's us. The buck stops with us on all this stuff.
So I, but again, I mean, I would make it subject to our, next meeting, approving a plan around that or some commitment to that. So we get the policy out of the way, but the neighbors have a level of comfort that it's, that we are going to make true on what we say. And, the hard part too is when we say things like, oh, we're going to meet 12 months, and with the school committee, our schedules are tough. The boards change a lot, leadership changes. We had a pandemic in the middle of the, whole thing. So, making things like that, I think, are good on paper, but I think that we need a better way of communicating, and maybe that's with field management. I don't know. I don't know how we put something in place to hear about some of the issues in an ongoing way. But I do know that the police and DPW, have been really stepping up their game in the past couple of years. So,
There's room for improvement.
The document, the attached minutes still says 10 p.m. There has been a suggestion of 9:45. I don't know that 9:30 is official anymore.
So
So we'll handle that. So
yeah.
If you want to make a motion.
Yeah, so I move that we approve the light policy extending the time to 9:30 PM, dimming the lights, and then 9:45 lights completely off as voted by the school committee in their last meeting, subject to a neighborhood impact plan that the board reviews on the September 12th meeting relating to operational issues.
I'm sorry, can I ask a clarification?
Yes.
Is that just approving the change to 9:30, or is that approving the policy?
I think it's approving the policy that the school committee adopted
Yep.
with the 9:30 change.
Because I think in part 6 of the policy that there could be further clarification on lights are permitted for all seasons 7 days a week with an off time of no later than, I guess that's 9:45 PM. That there references some sort of restriction or limitation that lights will not be on 7 days a week until 9:30 PM, 4 seasons.
So I think that's, so if we make that substantive change, it has to go back down to all the different players. So I think so I think there's the policy that can say that, just like any of our policies, our lighting policies do. And then we need to, talk and work with Nick, who's in our purview, on an operational plan. And that's what Mike's talking about, the neighborhood impact plan. And you're gonna look, between now and September, you're gonna poll those people and see what you can come up with to give some type of, what the need is, and when the need will be. I mean, I don't think this is 7 days a week, every day of the year. I mean, this is, I think the school committee talked about, and I think field management talked about that winter is, off limits once it snows. You've talked about that.
I said I'm not plowing this field.
Yeah, we're not putting a new field in
That's not gonna
to chew it up, to plow it in the winters.
So we can handle some of that, I think, in our next meeting as far as, taking a vote and saying we will not contract, because that's us, right? That's Nick. That has
Right.
nothing to do with the schools. Once, we will not contract more than 7 consecutive days, so it gives Nick a little bit of flexibility of scheduling and just saying, he can kind of move around those days or whatever it is, something like that, I think would be helpful.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's part of the neighborhood impact plan.
Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
I mean, it does answer my question. I'm just, outside of, it needs to be approved by the school committee and it needs to be approved by field management. That seems to be the only reason not to amend the policy to address that.
Well, no, it's that no matter what, Nick is the gatekeeper. So if Nick falls under our purview, right? I mean, sorry, Nick, I don't mean to individualize you. The rec department falls under our purview. So if we say, hey, Nick, we have this policy that says 7 days a week, 9:30, but, we want you every, 4th day, 5th day to make sure the lights are off, that's on us. That doesn't involve any of them.
So in 3, 4, whatever year, many years, if none of us are here and somebody takes this document and you have a new rec director and a new select board who look at this and say, we're gonna put the lights on 7 days a week until 10. I mean, that's what the language here potentially risks. So, is there a way to address in the language that it's not going to turn into a free-for-all on that field until 10 o'clock every day of the week?
Yeah, you can send it back to field management and they can rewrite it.
No, I think that we can handle that on our own at the next meeting, right? So that's why I
That's what
said
I'm talking about. There's two options. We can do it ourselves.
My motion is subject to the, our vote next time, right? So we're proving the light increase, getting that out of the way, and then saying all of this doesn't happen unless we say to Nick, you can't contract with anyone more than 7 consecutive days or whatever it is. You can't, you can't flat book it for 365 days a year, basically, right? So I think that's what we need to look at a little bit more and have a better understanding of how Nick, his system works, and if there's, breathing room there. I mean, I think we're hearing from the neighbors that they do need that breathing room, and I think that we can provide it.
Right, and I think what Nick's point was, there may be that natural breathing room. Like, let me talk to who would be using this field, and my guess is, and I've heard this in some of the conversation come up, that it's not as consistent 7 days a week as we think it is. And so we can address that.
Can I ask a question?
Let's not do this, Rich.
I apologize. If I'm trying to host my family to come over for a barbecue and I don't have a consistent night or two that are off every week, how do I tell them when to come? Because there's going to be no parking on the street. Because the parking is going to, it's going to run until 8:30. I want them to show up and have a barbecue in our backyard. The street's going to be full.
So
it would be nice to have consistency, that's all.
I mean, the only thing, Nick, correct me if I'm wrong, but the schedule is published, right? Isn't it? I mean, anyone can look at the field schedule?
Not all the fields.
Not all the fields? So is that?
But I think we still have the ability at our next meeting to say, after 8:30,
Right.
nobody parks on,
I agree.
whatever it be, Cutting or Manchester. I mean, I think that makes sense anyway. So,
Yeah, I mean, this is, again, the neighborhood impact plan addresses operational concerns that have been raised through this process. And, this is the first I've heard about all this stuff,
Yeah.
since I've been on the board, 16 months.
yeah, and to Anthony's
So-
point, I mean, we need some accountability,
Right.
in the future. So I think we can handle that at the next meeting.
Right. So I mean, I'm able to separate, just like we did
Yep.
with the sports court, operations versus, what we were building. So, we can do that here. I mean, we've done it before, we can do it again. I mean, we should be doing this. But this is in our purview as our board. So that's why, going back and having them amend these documents, frankly, I think we're going to be in the same spot we were with amended documents, several weeks from now. So, I mean, I think the quicker solution here, because from my understanding, whether the lights are on or off, these are all problems that are happening all the time. So, we need to address them no matter what, whether you change the policy or not. So, is the field being used in this manner, whenever the field is in use, these issues exist. So, just completely separate issue in my mind, so.
So can I second Mike's motion?
Can you just repeat your motion? Sorry.
I really can't. I don't remember what I said. It was, so I move that we approve, as voted by the school committee, the change of time for lights to be off at 9:30 p.m. Dim at 9:30 p.m. and off completely by 9:45, subject to our approval of a neighborhood impact plan at our September 12th, 2022 meeting.
So are we adopting the field management?
Yes, if that's the same. that was
With the
voted.
amended,
Well, they changed.
with the amendment that the school committee made?
Yes, sorry, yes. I'll change that to the field management committee proposal and plan as amended by the school committee.
Can you second that, John?
I'm seconding that, yes.
Roll call vote. Mike?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
And Thea?
No.
I vote yes. All right, so Nick and Jay, you've got your homework to do. Beth, you have what you need to do. So we'll have this on the agenda for September 12th. And we'll continue, obviously, we can talk about, bring in the chief over the next couple days and see what we can do as well. He has some ideas about, the parking and stuff, and address this stuff. Okay, let's report back on September 12th and all that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Who? Oh. Okay. So we have a licensing hearing that was supposed to be at 7:30. We're a little late, I apologize.
Let's take a break after this, Rich.
Yep. Come on up. So this is approve a common vicular license for PB Winchester LLC doing business as Pliables at 600 Main Street, Winchester.
Yes.
How are you?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Just introduce yourself and
Of course.
for the record.
Changing gears a little bit, and that was pretty interesting. So my name's Hung Lam. I'm the managing partner for Pliables, and our hope is to get a CB license to open up at 600 Main Street. So a little bit about myself. We started off opening our first Pliables. It's a franchise. A friend of mine started it down in New Jersey. It consists of like acai bowls, smoothies, juices, all healthy food options. My partners and I went to Boston College. We put together a team. We opened our first one up across from BC, and it did well. And then we opened up a couple more, and then now we're starting to branch out a little bit to some towns. I actually live in Milton, down about 10 miles south of Boston, and Winchester is like the Milton of the North Shore. So, and I have a handful of friends that live in Winchester as well. So we started looking around and we found this nice location, and then that's why I'm here today to hopefully open it up. Just a couple of things about the kind of community. So we hire a lot of high schoolers or college kids, so we try to be pretty active in the community. We also work closely with the high schools, or colleges for those ones that are near the colleges, but we do a lot of dine and donate, so we work with all the different sports teams or the different clubs, and during a certain number of hours, we'll donate 10% of our sales to them if they want to raise money. So we try, our best to be, involved with the schools and the community itself. So, and so far in Milton, which is kind of the wouldn't say trial, but that's a town. It wasn't based around colleges or anything. It's been going really well there, and a lot of the support coming from the community as well.
Great. Any questions? All the paperwork's in order, Beth, and everything's all set? Are you gonna have poke bowls in Winchester?
So we're not. So
Sure.
we have the opportunity to, but sometimes I take a step back. I don't know if I want high schoolers in charge of my fish and pokies. So
Point well taken.
So
how do you put it that way?
Our health department appreciates that, yes.
Jen Murphy somewhere is nodding.
Yes, exactly. We're open from 8 till 9 as well, so it's not
Great,
a late
yeah.
night spot or anything like that.
Well, the community seems really excited about this, so
Yeah.
it seems to be the buzz around town. So welcome. We look forward to having you in town and sampling your food, and hopefully having a ribbon cutting and stuff like that. So
Yes.
thanks for choosing Winchester and invest in. And I think with that, we'll take a motion. Unless anybody got anything else to say?
Move we approve a common victual license for PB Winchester LLC doing business as Pliables at 600 Main Street, Winchester.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? No. Great.
Awesome.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
When are
Best
you
of luck.
opening? I heard September?
We're hoping middle of September.
Good luck.
So we're targeting the 23rd right now, that weekend. So.
All right.
Great.
I'll coordinate with Spirit
I
Night.
was gonna say, that's good timing, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our Spirit weekend.
We have a big
perfect.
weekend that weekend. We have a road race, and that Friday night is our Spirit Night where we kind of close the downtown, and
Oh, that's perfect.
be great. Yeah, great.
That'd be great. Yeah, every time I come here, I'm talking to my wife, I'm like, maybe we should move up to Winchester. It's pretty cool. But I love like the...
Commute a couple more times, and you really want to move up here.
I know, I love like the center of it. You guys have a lot of things going on there.
Yeah.
So, well, I appreciate it. Looking forward to
right.
being around. And
Good luck.
yeah, if you guys need anything, please let me know.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna just take a 5-minute break. Remember to stretch your legs. It's a long night to be going. All right, great. Thank you. Welcome back. We're going to start up again with the tree working group. Are they present? Come on up. How are you?
Evening.
Diab, how are you?
Pretty good. Good evening, everyone.
Look like you're ready for a party.
I'm always ready for a party.
You came to the right spot.
That's
Plain
what
flight
I
to Hawaii is
hear.
waiting outside.
That's what I hear. Just
So, good evening. I'm David Miller. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission, and this is Diab Jarius, the chair of the Planning Board. We're here to provide a little bit of an update. It's a work in progress as to what the Trees Working Group has been up to for some considerable period of time. The working group is composed of myself on the Conservation Commission, Ruth Tremarky from the Climate Action Advisory Committee, Diab and Sally Dale from the Planning Board. Brian participates, as well as Ken Pruitt as well. And I just would, before I forget, you received in your package a much more robust version of this. This has been whittled down to keep it more bite-sized, I guess would be the way to say it. And before we're done tonight, I'd like to be sure that you sort of appreciate three things. One is that this group of individuals has been working on this quite seriously for a while. So we're all individuals in a position to actually be impactful to the subject we're going to be bringing up. The other is that we talk about this concept of the urban forest, and when we say urban forest, we mean all the trees in town, which is distinct from perhaps what some of you may be thinking. And the other is that we've gotten a lot of support in town. We have 75 more people who've participated in our demonstrations, if you will. So just to get you updated on the current status of trees in Winchester, as you probably all know, there's a state law that regulates public trees, and there is a town bylaw which regulates public trees as well. Public trees are the trees that are on the street, trees that are around town common. The town owns the trees in the conservation spaces, but these are not trees that are in private lots. These are trees in public ways. It's also state law that we have to have a tree warden, and we do. It's Jay Gill is the head tree warden, and there's several other people, Jim Shattuck below Jay, that handle trees. But we have no certified arborist in town, no one who's officially a tree person, trained as such to manage our town trees. DPW is limited with regard to any sort of direct budget item for trees. Certainly limited on manpower to devote to trees. And so as a result, it's our perception that DPW is biased towards reactivity as opposed to proactivity when it comes to trees. A big issue that I think has gotten a lot of us involved with this issue is that trees in private lots are, first of all, as I said at the beginning, all part of what we perceive as Winchester's urban forest. Yet, I think we've all seen it around town. Developers clear-cut lots, sort of the more pejorative phrase is they scrape lots clean in anticipation of building houses. Tree companies who are doing tree work, in general, move towards cutting down the trees as opposed to pruning them or treating them for any particular disease. So as a result, we're in a negative place when it comes to the trees in town. What we'd like to see is a tree canopy survey, which is a survey that looks at all the trees in town, for the simplest way to put it, is from the top down, right? We all appreciate how important trees are for a variety of things. We have a very full slide in the presentation we shared with you in your board packet. But it's really the canopy, which, if you will, is the sort of working element of the trees in town. And a survey would help us understand where the trees are, what their health is, what their size is. At this point in time, you can essentially do a survey which identifies every single tree in town. And one of the reasons we want to do this is to understand the health of the canopy. Trees suffer from natural aging processes, and they need to be cut down. They fall down, whatever. We had quite a few losses from the storm last week, and those need to be replaced. Newly planted trees are not equivalent to mature trees, and this is sort of a thing we get a sense of when you do a survey. So that, I think, would be an important element to understanding where our tree status is in town. And of course, trees are part of our community. Their removal results in lasting loss to both the natural and the human environments. you know, I think we all know where some recent examples are, but I thought these are worth sharing as things which certainly caught our attention. I'm sure it caught attention of many people in town. On the right is the Abbey Road development. I think we all knew what that looked like before those trees were all cut down at that level. The question we would ask is, was that at all necessary? Was there a way that, you know, within the plans of the development, did that need to be the outcome? You know, the right side of the road, Abbey Road there, is what it looked like before. You know, I pity the poor fellow on Dana Street that was his backyard at one point in time. On the left is a more specific example of what we see happening when it comes to development. Houses are torn down and all the trees on the lot are removed. And again, the question is, did that have to be the outcome? I would point out a couple of other things. One is that I won't presume why the developer cut down all the trees in the lot, but certainly one outcome is that those trees will be replaced with shrubs or much smaller trees. And again, to make the point that those trees are not at all equivalent to the other trees that surround that area in terms of the benefits of what we get from trees. So we'd like to ask, and we'll talk a little bit more about how we would do that, whether that was really, truly necessary. Do you have a question, Mike? You look at a question.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, I didn't want to interrupt you, but
No.
just a quick one. Do we know if, it looks like on the left, that picture there's going to be a project there. Is that by right project, or does that have to get a variance or a special permit or anything to do what they are intending to do? Do we know if it goes?
There is, well, you'll see the slide coming up, but there is no requirement to state what you're going to do with trees in town. There is no law that covers that on private lots.
Doesn't site plan review cover some of that?
It does. You have to minimize the removal of trees often. So it's sort of a subjective criterion. But it's only if you go through site plan review, and you only have to go, there's a very limited number of projects which go through site plan review. Maybe 2, 3 a month out of hundreds of projects that happen in town. So you don't capture much out of that.
Yeah, and just by way of full disclosure, for the Conservation Commission, if a tree happens to be in a wetland area that falls in our jurisdiction, we can have a conversation with the people about that. But in terms of an actual law, bylaw in town that speaks to this issue, there is none. So what are the goals of our group? As we like to say, preserve and enhance Winchester's urban forest. And these are two quite distinct things, right? Preserving it is getting a handle on tree loss. Enhancing it is actually taking a step further of encouraging the planting of trees, be it on private lots or public places. We'd like to see the development of a forward-looking urban forest management plan, which is something which integrates across town what's happening with our urban forest, strategizes what can be done to preserve and enhance it, if you will. We also see the need for a town-approved organizational structure that keeps the management plan, I mentioned the third bullet there, current and ensuring its ongoing implementation. A committee of some sort. And I would also mention that, again, for those of you who are familiar with this, the current town public shade tree bylaw speaks to a permanent shade tree committee, but not pointing fingers in any direction. That committee hasn't met for at least 3 years, right? So, and they also just have it as their jurisdiction, public shade trees. So, one of the things we have underway, and again, as an aside, we're using a high school student to help us out with this as a, I guess, a quasi-intern, is looking at what other towns in the area have as their tree bylaws. And I'm not sure where you are, but while, again, it's state law that you need to protect your public trees, many other trees, other towns and cities in the area around us have bylaws which speak to trees on private lots as well and how they would be handled. And there's a variety of ways they're being handled. So what we're referring to here is the survey that's being done to get an understanding of what they're doing and what might work in Winchester as well. And looking ahead of us, we think there is the possibility of drafting a bylaw which sort of rolls up all of these concepts into a broader tree protection bylaw called Urban Forest Bylaw, and looks at trees both in the public arena as it's currently being handled, but also now looks over at trees on private lots as well.
Are you looking to put something on for the fall town meeting?
No, that would be ambitious from where we are right now. The soonest would be spring. And of course, education is a big part of all this, with a big focus being on landscaping contractors and developers. So what have we been up to? The picture on the right is us and the booth that we did on Town Day. Got a lot of traction, a lot of traffic. We had one a few weeks ago on Town Common for Farmers Market. We're going to have one again this Saturday at Farmers Market. This has allowed us to compile a database of well over 75 interested Winchester residents about what we're trying to get done here. And as I mentioned, we're looking at tree bylaws from a variety of other towns. Before I get to the vision, anything you want to say that I might not have said?
The only thing I wanted to point out is that we, a couple of years ago when we first started, we spoke to a lot of the tree wardens from other towns around us who had tree bylaws. So we had a really very practical look at what worked, what didn't work, how different towns dealt with dealing with trees on private property. So there is a wide range of efforts, and finding something that works with Winchester will be interesting. We really benefit from having Peter Wild, who is Boston Tree Preservation principal owner, and he met with us to talk about his views on preservation and how to integrate things into the town. So we've had a lot of really high quality people speak with us, and just obviously gave us a lot more questions than answers yet, but that's where we're coming from. Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, that's great, thank you. So we've put together kind of a vision statement for our group, but we hope that a lot of other people buy into it as well, and I'll take the liberty of reading it. Winchester is proud of the role the trees play in our community. Our urban forest encompasses trees throughout town, and its benefits are shared by all our residents. It forms a critical element of our natural environment and identity as a community. The Trees Working Group's primary goal is the preservation and enhancement of Winchester's urban forest and its tree canopy. So, leave it at that. Any questions that anyone might have? Again, I comment that there's that much more robust version that was in your package if you dive into any of this.
At this point, any questions, comments?
Negatives, positives?
How big a problem is this in town of the land getting denuded? I'm very sensitive to that. Let's say the average real estate tax bill is $17,000. So now we want to go and potentially restrict the property owner's rights by letting them know what they can do with the trees on their property. Right? That's really what it is, and it seems intrusive. I get that we all live in a community and we do things for the best of the community. So how do you assure the property owners that this isn't just going to be another encroachment of the nanny state on how we should live our lives by the ideals of someone else?
Yeah, well, we anticipated that question will be the question that sort of is the through line for this entire conversation, to be sure. And I think I'll let Deb take a stab at the answer as well. But the answer lies in the importance of trees to the community and our lives, right? And that's sort of our starting point for the conversation. And when you look at the trees that are in town, there are many of them that are public shade trees, and there are many of them that are on private lots. And both those trees contribute to that well-being, right? So like a lot of things in life, there's a compromise here that needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed, as Deb was making a reference to, appropriately. And that's one of the things we're working on through this whole process. But, the loss of 20-inch oak trees when that wasn't necessary in the course of putting up a house or adding an extension, whatever, is, I think, a conversation that's well worth having.
So then I have a bunch of trees over my backyard, and it's causing a bunch of shade.
Yep.
I don't want shade in my backyard.
Yep.
So I paid $1.2 million for my house, and I pay $17,000 a year in taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to now go to the town and ask, oh, hey, can I cut those trees down in my yard?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're proposing?
I think that it's a little more nuanced than that. In particular,
In the end, that's what happens.
in the end, there are a lot of regulations in town to protect not just the homeowner, but the homeowner's neighbors. And so what we look at is the balance. So if you look at zoning, for instance, there's a reason we have setbacks, and that's to protect the neighbors from encroachment on construction.
Right,
And
which-
so we have come to this realization that property rights are in balance, and so that your property rights are in balance with your neighbor's property rights. So one of the things that when we look at other communities and how they've looked at trees, they look at what is this tree, how does this tree benefit both the neighbors and the lot that the tree is on.
So if I follow your logic, then everybody in my neighborhood should drive an electric car, because if they drive internal combustion engines, it negatively impacts me. Same theory. If those trees are on my lot and I want to cut them down, I should be able to cut them down.
There are currently limits on what property owners can do. For instance, since I'm on the planning board, I'm very familiar with the zoning bylaws. And so, for instance, you could not say, build your house directly to the lot line.
So you want to codify my ability to cut my trees down in my yard?
What we're looking at
Is that
is
a yes or no?
certain trees might be worth protecting.
So
That
that's yes.
That's a conversation that
Okay. Thank you.
this community needs to have.
No, I think this is a solution looking for a problem.
We have heard from many residents about trees being cut down on lots behind them, which affect their water table, the shade on their property. There's a whole, if you look at the legal precedents about people who look at shadows on their lots, or what's happening when someone else does something on their lot which affects theirs. So
Now I'm going to do shadow studies.
No, that's not what I said. What I'm saying
you
is
say
that
shadows.
what I'm saying is there are precedents where what affects you, what you do on your property affects others. So there's a long legal history of how we look at what you do on your property and how it affects others. I mean, this is just, you can go back hundreds of years. This is not a new concept of trying to understand how you integrate property rights of neighbors and the rights of the community.
So John, so this is just an update tonight of what they're working
I
on.
know. But obviously,
we
it's
don't
a
need
hot button me, you know.
This isn't the, Lincoln Douglas debates or anything like that about property rights. We have got, a full agenda. We've got a lot left to do. I mean, I can
We're just
appreciate.
getting started, my friend.
I can appreciate.
I think you're right about that.
I can appreciate the dialogue, but I mean, I do want to keep things moving, especially if this isn't going to be on for the fall town meeting. I was
No.
under the impression that something might be coming for the fall town meeting. That's why
Nope.
we're here tonight.
I just want to make one
go ahead.
comment before if that's okay. I think it would be helpful too, as we're talking about a restriction there, to also maybe have an incentive conversation, for somebody that's moving through site plan review, if that's triggered, or I know especially in the Conservation Commission, as you said, those hearings are usually a give and take and trying to find balance, and it's if you plant this native tree here, or you preserve this one, then we'll let this slide on this side, and I think that maybe something that speaks to residents as well, to and especially I know those properties that you put up there in particular, and there is a sense that of loss when you see a clear cut lot like that, so
A loss at many levels, not just the visual,
Yeah.
right? And as we say, it's preserve and enhance. So there's your carrot and your stick.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna.
Can I take one of these?
What are they?
Yeah.
Yep, sure. Go ahead.
it's $50, David.
I see representatives from Eversource here on that project, so I'm going to go to Eversource right now.
Cooler over here.
Want to come on up?
Are you okay?
What's up?
It's a lot cooler over here with that AC on.
So if you guys want to come
air
in.
conditioning.
I demand it. Really? Cold? Did you turn it off one meeting? It was like sweltering. It's like, it's getting hot in here?
It's either
I was
really-
like dying.
Really cold or really hot in here, It's,
We just.
oh, no, I'm gonna turn on the,
So you guys are the ones making all the noise over on that side of town, huh?
Hopefully not much longer, but yes, we are.
Another week or so? Street's gonna hold you to that.
I'm optimistic, but not a week. So I'm Mike Hager, the Eversource Project Manager. With me is Jason Wright from our Community Relations and Miles Line Kennedy from our outreach team for the project. So we're here to give you an update on why we're making all the noise in your town. So, again, this is just an overall map, and we've kind of broken our discussion into three areas. Washington Street, Cross Street from Washington up to Forest, and then the remaining work from, say, the Forest Street over to the Woburn line there. Just as a high level, where we stand as of today, 4 of the 6 manholes or splice vaults are installed. The 2 that we have left to do are manhole 3 and 4 on Cross Street. This is Washington up here.
Okay.
This is Cross. This is the MBTA Bridge, Aberjona River area. This is the Woburn Town Line across street.
Okay.
That's Main Street on the very.
I see, that's Main Street right there, and then it goes down the lake. Okay, I gotcha. Sorry, just trying to get my bearings.
We've got, about 2,700 feet of duct bank installed to date. So on Washington Street, with the exception of the trenchless crossing of the river up by the cancer center there, we are complete. We currently have to finish up between Marion Street and Forest Street. We should wrap up the backfill and paving of the Forest Street intersection hopefully tomorrow, and then complete from there. So there's just a little over 500 feet of duct bank left to do. We're expecting just to have a single work zone in that section, and there'll be 2 to 3 crews within that zone. The message we have is get this thing complete before school starts at the end of the month. We are working 10-hour shifts, maybe put a couple of Saturdays in there to get it done. I'm hopeful, I'm optimistic. I understand that's the goal. We're trying to get there. If I miss it, I might miss it by a week or so and just have a very small section of work. But that's our focus for the coming 3 weeks, is to get this wrapped up. And then that would have everything complete. We still have an alternate plan for how to get underneath the river that we're discussing with staff. And our goal is to kind of wrap up staff questions and any remaining approvals. I need to modify my Concom permit, but for that, but hopefully get this started in September, and give me a week or 2 with some prep work and stuff on either end, but it's about a 6-week duration to install the remaining duct bank we have over there. So there'll still be, even though we complete this section of Washington Street hopefully by Labor Day, still a couple of months worth of activity in the September-October timeframe.
Will that involve closing the bridge?
No, our traffic plan was still enable 1 lane of traffic during the work days, and both lanes remain open outside of our work hours up there.
Okay.
The presentation we gave you, we keep talking about, duct bank and all the excavation in the streets, but the timeframes we have up here, I keep talking about duct bank installation. Let me just talk the manhole, this section here. But after that's done, I do have to send a crew back to clean the pipes that we've installed in there. So it's set up a truck at each manhole, just pop the cover off during the day and go back. So I have some cleaning and proofing that has to take place. Eventually, the dates here are dates that we need to do cable pulling and splicing in order to meet our target date of May 2023 to complete this. It is challenging, but those are the dates that are reflected there. So there's still some additional work after we complete all the excavation, but again, that I won't be digging up the streets. I'll just be setting up at the manholes for the work day, and then leaving that space at the end of the work day. So that's the time frame for those activities beyond the current ongoing
work that we have.
So I'm gonna just stop you right there. Anybody have any questions about this section of project? I mean, you say that, you know, the goal is to get that done as closely to the start of school as possible, because I think that's been, I know my email's been blowing up with complaints about this area of town. So, you know, a lot of it is just generally a construction site, but, you know, it's a busy thoroughfare, and, you know, there's a lot going on there. And I think some of the neighbors have just been upset, you know, with just, you know, they wake up and, you know, they're blocked in or something like that, so. You live over there, you can speak to it better than I can, but.
I mean, school starts in 2 weeks, and on this Clematis Street, in the middle, there's 15 kids who are gonna be walking to school in the morning. And given the traffic controls there, I think walking to school and getting there is fine, but there's traffic that's coming, you know, through Washington Street, Forest, that's gonna get really busy, and when it gets really busy, there's a lot of cut-throughs on those side streets that makes it much riskier for the kids who live on Forest, Clematis, Marion, Fairmont, Orient, like, you know, all of those right in that area. So I think there are concerns of it not getting wrapped up before school just makes
And I
it
may end up
dangerous
with
there.
first couple of days of school in that first week, we're still in here trying to clean it up. So it's one thing to just manage vehicle traffic right now, but certainly when we get to the point for those 2 days of school, I'm still doing some work, or if I need an extra week to wrap up that between, you know, our construction team and the details in there, we'll need to make sure that, you know, and I think that's where you're gonna make us alter our start time, so it's later in the morning, and the morning, you know, pedestrian traffic goes away.
Start time, but if
Yep.
we do push it, especially the first.
But that
day of
requires.
school, it's kind of always kind of a disaster, best case scenario, so we might.
Yep, and that requires a little extra attention on us. We do have signs and sidewalks and detours around that, but there'll be, as you said, extra foot traffic that we'll need to factor into the plans if we're still there during school days.
Yeah, I think if it is still there during school days, if there can be any additional communication that can be done, I can put a banner on my house, but any additional communication that can be done on those sidewalks, on those streets, for people to be aware of what might be going on, that they can, you know, be prepared for traveling to school, specifically there, and probably also, you know, up across where the work is taking place by Holton and elsewhere.
And we can work with the school department to help get information out in that week before school starts, to let parents
So we
know
can
what to
provide
expect.
communication flyers to the school to distribute in there. We can maybe broaden our, or mailings or outreach to a broader neighborhood where children will probably be walking over here. We'll start working on how to put together a plan and how to get it in the right hands of people ahead of time, should we get there.
All right.
The second area is Cross Street between Forest and Washington. The good news here is all that work is complete. So we were able to work that in June and July, you know, 2 crews working towards each other, got that complete. So this whole section is complete. You know, we still have cleaning and proofing to come back later in the year, you know, and, you know, cable pulling, splicing, but as far as construction activities in that section, we're done.
Okay. Where's the bridge? Where's the?
So the bridge, so here's the river, so the bridge is like right here.
Okay. And so the last time you were here, you were talking about closing that bridge during the summer months, right? And that didn't
work out. I have a slide coming up for the.
Okay, you
do I? No, I don't. So let me talk about it now. So I've got multiple versions. So that just takes us to Forest. I still have to get underneath the river and underneath the bridge, which is about here, to get to the other side of the bridge. Our, last time we were here, the plan we had was a jack and bore operation. I needed big pits on either side, and I needed to detour traffic around that intersection for several months, 24 hours a day, because of the size of the pits. We have investigated an alternate drilling method to do that, that puts the pit, one of the pits closer to Forest Street intersection, more or less where we left off, the other one about where we were before. We're still waiting for soil boring results to come back. We did those last week. Hopefully we get the answers this week to make sure it can work out. And I still have some technical reviews with town staff and others, but the alternate method that we've come up with changes the pits and what we do at that area, so we would be able to, during the workday, provide for one lane of traffic around those two pits, so there's traffic going in there, and for us to close those up at the end of the workday, so after hours, there's still 2 lanes of traffic going on over there.
And how long would you need to do that for? How long do you think this operation is going to take?
So we're estimating 12 weeks to do the drilling piece. You know, we're refining that to see if we can shave a little bit off with something, maybe a little prep work on either side. You know, schedule-wise, I'm trying to still move this thing through and get a chance to get it done this calendar year before the snow flies and be complete.
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. So when do we
Yeah, so, I mean,
when do we stop the
think
street openings?
So, there's a couple pieces to it, right? They'd still have to, obviously there's staff review, and then they have to go to the Conservation Commission, which
Okay.
is.
And I have to go to MWRA and MBTA
Right.
because their assets are affected as well.
And,
So we're talking
we have
October at best. You would start this.
Right, and we have, like you said, a November 15th street open moratorium. Jay and I are concerned about starting anything that we know best case scenario is gonna go into December. So I think timing-wise, Mike's heard this from me before, I think it's a challenge to try to get this done this year.
I'm optimistic and trying to see if I can't quite get it done. Beth thinks I'm a little overly optimistic. I don't think she's off, but, you know, I gotta keep working and until we get to the point where, you know, it really doesn't make sense and go there, so. If there's a chance I can pull it off and that 12 weeks becomes 10 and the approvals go through a little quicker than planned and it really is September instead of October, I'd like to keep the
Do we
conversation
need
going.
to approve that, Beth? Who
Well,
needs-
I think if there's a road closure, you'd probably you'd want it to come to the
Yeah.
board, but the rest of it's typically managed through the street opening permit process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that, you know, you're exploring options to keep that open, at least some respects, because that's a heavy thoroughfare, especially in the fall with that community soccer field right there.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
gotta do something.
So that covers that. So let me go, you know, to the other side of the bridge here. We call manhole 5 to manhole 3. So manhole 5 is at the Lowell Holton Street intersection. Manhole 3 being up near Main Street, right at the Woburn line. So we did complete manhole 5 as well as duct bank to get us through the this Holton Lowell heavily congested intersection here during the summer. I think we're doing final paving restoration. There'll be a crew there for a day or two this week, and then we've gone about as far as we want to until we can figure out where the final pit's going to be for that other crossing and connect the pieces up. So this is done as of the next day or two. We're setting up tomorrow to put this manhole in. I forget what the street is, but it's in the general area, about 311 to 316 Cross Street is where this is. So that, we're gonna start setting up for that tomorrow. The goal is to set the manhole on Saturday again, because with the crane, we're gonna have to block off that roadway for a few hours, have that restored by the middle of next week. And then, once the crew becomes available off of Washington Street, we should be beginning at manhole 5 here and working our way towards Adams Road and, you know, working our way back towards the manhole to get whatever we can during the fall season over here. By the time we come back here, we should be done with that Washington Street stuff, except the thing up on the north end.
So by your schedule here, the duck bank installation should be done by the June of 2023, next spring.
So if just doing our layout as to how many crews we can get in here and how many feet it is and what we think a reasonable production rate is, I do kind of get as much as I can done this year, and then I run into the winter moratorium. Maybe I get a week or two extension, but if you don't let me go through the winter so I can be out of here in May, then I'm gonna have to come back in April and complete what's left, and that does take me to about June of next year.
And there's no way we can allow you to work through the winter in this section because you do have to do water bypassing, so we can't be bypassing water mains when it's below freezing. So it's not even realistic if we wanted to let you work through the winter in that section.
Right.
All right, but June 2023, this should all be done.
Yes, that's our plan, yep.
It's recorded.
And Jay, don't if we get this manhole floor in and whatever else, and maybe we can find time to work some of the water pieces and reschedule some of the others. We'll keep working with town staff to find a way. They've been holding me accountable to this and making sure I do it right, but at the same time, working with us to find the areas to get as much done as we can and get out there as quickly as we can. So we'll continue to look at ways to, how much can we get done this year, and with minimizing the impacts and get out here as soon as we can.
Okay.
Again, I'm trying to meet a May 2023 in-service date. If you look at this slide, cable pulling, I have January 23 in parentheses. That's when I have to pull the cable in order for me to make my May 2020 date. If I can't complete the duct bank to June, then I'm coming in July, and that just kind of shows, the date given where we are with this schedule for completing the duct bank versus the date I have to meet in order to meet a 2023 in-service date for the project, so.
Okay.
Do you have any information on when you're going to be doing the work at Lake Ave in Woburn? It's obviously not in Winchester, but it does create significant traffic impacts in Winchester. Are you closing Lake Ave at the Horn Pond Brook outlet there?
I'm a little disappointed I don't have anything done so far this year. So we're working with Woburn between Arlington Street and Pickering Street, if you're familiar with those. We just need to figure out where the drain line is, and there's doing some repairs on the drain line. So hopefully by the end of this week, we've got a plan, and I can start getting a crew over there in the next week or two to do that stretch. Then I do have from Arlington Street across the Horn Pond, where there's another trenchless crossing. We're hoping to get into the details of that plan with the results that come this week. I'd like to get that done this fall as well. So ideally, I'd have a crew doing something in at Arlington and Pickering Street in the next couple of weeks. Probably be a couple of months, depending on how deep I have to go to get under a drain line. And at the same time, there is a second machine available to do that crossing, so I'm trying to get that done in the fall as well.
Yeah, just keep us up to date, obviously, because we have the Lynch School over there, and that's, it's not Winchester, but it's Winchester for many of us that traveled through there, so.
And as far as the road closing, similar thing. When I'm doing the duct bank, there will be one lane of traffic through that area with maybe a detour around it for the other traffic. And when I do the trenchless crossing, we'll be able to have a lane of alternating traffic and close it up at the end of the night.
So it would be great, looking at the community guys, that this, with school starting, if we could get some one-page flyer of where the work will be, so that we can have their school department send that out with the beginning of school. They're welcome back. If you live on this side of town, here's some issues, to expect with back to school and traffic, just so they are aware of that.
So just looking at the calendar, if you could get us something by the end of next week, that we can get it, because school starts on the 31st.
31st.
So
Yeah, we'll get it to you by the end of the week.
Yeah, that'll be good, because if I give it to you where I am today, the work zone's a lot different than where it will be 2.5 weeks from now. So end of next week is just a week before school, and we'll kind of know where we're going to be the following week. So.
Chairman?
Yes.
On that note, Mike, make sure you talk to Frank Castle, say safety officer will be out there, so we'll have the kids walk the sidewalk to make sure it's safe. So we'll meet up with Frank Bassel, the safety officer, about the walk, get the kids to school.
We'll get his input on the plan as well.
Thank you. Any questions for these guys?
I just want to reiterate that there's been a lot of impacts with this on the neighborhood, on the sidewalks, the street closures. Despite kind of the businesses on Cross Street, it is very residential. And the more, like, if you can err on the side of more communication, I think that will be valuable. To be honest, I received a mailing from Eversource, and I learned that there's work being done in Cambridge and Somerville, but not about what was happening, down the block from me. So, I would have appreciated if I was getting mail and it was about what was happening where we are. But I know that there are residents who've been really pretty significantly affected by this, who are just finding communication is coming really on the tail end of when it can be valuable to them in knowing what's going on.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Look forward to the next update. All right, we're gonna.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're gonna go to electric leaf blowers next. Hi, Rachel.
Hello. Hi.
What's
My
up?
name's Rachel Whitehouse, and hi, how are you? Nice to meet you all. Thank you, Chairman Mucci, for having me.
Sure.
And I'm a 17-year resident of Winchester. I put 2 girls through Winchester High before it was renovated, and I live at 9 Hillside Avenue. And I'm here representing Quiet Clean Winchester, which is an advocacy group dedicated to advancing the transition to electric lawn care and land care. And my co-chair is George Woody Wood, and he can't be here tonight, but I just wanted to make sure you knew he's my co-chair. And since Woody or I had spoken to all of you individually in advance of this meeting, Patricia gave me enough help to get a pre-read out to all of you with some materials, the bylaw, and a letter. I'm not going to spend really any time, I was told I had 5 minutes, so I'm not going to spend any time talking about the challenges of gas leaf blowers or why transition to electric lawn care. I'm just going to focus on a bylaw. Oh, let's see. I got it. Just a bylaw that we're going to bring to the Fall Town Meeting as a citizen's petition, and it's a simple bylaw designed specifically for Winchester to provide a quieter and cleaner town for residents and support and respect the landscapers in town. So when I say that I want to talk about the bylaw, the first thing I want to say is what the bylaw is not. As you can see from this map, the towns in Eastern Mass have been very active over the last few years in advancing laws to restrict or phase out gas leaf blowers, and including 2 towns that abut Winchester, Lexington and Arlington, just this spring voted at their town meetings to actually phase out, ban gas leaf blowers in town within the next few years. So as Woody and I looked at what's been done in these other towns and worked on designing a bylaw for Winchester, we, after talking to many landscapers, listening to forums with landscapers in other towns, we decided to exclude many of the requirements that have been put in place in these other towns because they are difficult and time-consuming to enforce, and we believe, place an undue burden on the landscapers. So I'm not going to go through this list in great detail, but as I mentioned, they're phasing them out in 2 towns. We're not proposing to do that here in Winchester with this bylaw. In some towns, they specify the age and type of leaf blower, we're not proposing that. There is also a decibel level requirement, which requires that you have a piece of equipment that you could go out and measure at a certain feet, the decibel level. We don't propose that. And the number of gas leaf blower on lots. Again, these are all things that we feel would be difficult to enforce, so we're proposing a simple and less restrictive bylaw that we believe is reasonable for Winchester. So how do we define simple? Well, it's basically that electric leaf blowers can be used year-round by all users, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, only as allowed by state law. Gas leaf blowers would only be allowed during the shoulder seasons. And the shoulder seasons are basically when the landscapers are telling us that they need the equipment that they're used to using for the heavy cleanups. So April 1 to May 15th and October 1 through November 30th, gas leaf blowers would be allowed. The use would be restricted on Monday to Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m., which is slightly shorter than they use them now. The purpose of that is for our school children who walk to town, and we think that they should be able to walk to town without sort of being exposed to the toxic pollutants that are emitted by the gas leaf blowers, and that homeowners can continue to use their gas leaf blowers on Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that's the basics. I could keep going, but if you have questions, please jump in.
I guess the only thing I would say, just in my own neighborhood, is, the leaves don't fall off the trees sometimes November 30th. It's usually like December 15th is they're still doing fall cleanups because of all the oak trees around that hold on to the leaves.
Oak trees definitely lose their leaves later.
Yeah. So being at the end of a hill, they all kind of flow down. So I see landscapers. You just may want to extend that into December, middle of December. That's the only comment I have about that. I think we've already talked about that.
Why is the restriction on homeowners only on Saturdays and Sundays? Right? Use allowed by homeowners only on Saturdays and Sundays.
I was just saying that the commercial landscapers wouldn't be allowed to use.
So they can't come on a Saturday or to do it.
Right. That's a change from now.
Well, right now, there's no restriction.
It's all a
they
change.
come whenever they want.
It's all
7
a change.
a.m. they're out there.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. It's all a change now. I'm going to keep going, if that's okay. Trying to stay to my 5 minutes. So these are the other pieces that we propose in this bylaw. The first is permits required for commercial leaf blower operators, landscapers. We've seen that this does work in other towns, and it's really an annual permit that's required for a very low fee. It's not really about the fee. It's more about having a list of landscapers so that we can give them the bylaw, and if the bylaw changes or there's anything else they need to know, so we can communicate with them. We would hope that the town clerk's office could help us with that through a simple online registration system, and I believe you can already pay on the Winchester US website now. So, but again, that's up to it's not up to us which group in town would administer that permit.
No, but that's an issue for us, and that's from the feedback that I've gotten. Staff is concerned about that. Okay. I think that needs to be thought through. Somewhere Mary Ellen's, steam's coming out of her ears, probably one more task that we're making her do.
Understood.
So, I think that needs to be, I get that's not something that, you're overly concerned with. You think it would be simple, but from what I'm hearing from staff, they think that's going to be very onerous.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a concern, just in terms of staff ability to take on another permit of this type. There are back-end issues with online sales that require additional work on our behalf for multiple departments, so it's not as simple as just putting it up there. And I do think if the primary purpose of the permit is to allow better communication. There's probably other ways that we could do that as opposed to, you know, having an annual permit process. So I think that's something that we are very concerned about.
Yeah, I mean, you just said that the communication was the crux of it. Is that?
Well, there is one other reason for it, and it's after our conversation with Chief O'Connell about enforcement.
Yep.
So the recommendation in the bylaws, police department enforcement. And he explained to us it would be a civil bylaw infraction. He already has a ticket book that he uses, and he already has an existing system for that, but he felt that the registration of the landscapers would make his job easier. So he would have that list and be able to, when he goes to a home and finds that there needs to be a ticket written, that he would have the information, because then he would mail it to what we're proposing is it's not the homeowner who gets the ticket, and it's not the foreman. They were told by someone to go do the work in a particular way, and that's the landscape or the commercial operator owner. So he would mail it to them.
So if John Doe Landscaping is violating this bylaw,
Mm-hmm.
the police are called, they show up, they don't issue a ticket to the crew, they mail it to the
owner.
To the owner of the company.
Right.
So I guess I'm gonna put when I first started in the DA's office in Framingham, we used to see these civil bylaws, infractions come through, and we were charged before there was housing court to
You know way
prosecute
more
this.
about this than I do.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm just figuring out, so that goes to the owner, so, I mean, how do you, if I'm the owner, I'm just gonna appeal it, what's the proof?
What's the proof?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I would assume the police department doesn't write tickets just because they.
No, but I mean, they're gonna say, on such date, you guys you're violating the bylaw, and and the contractor's gonna say, well, we weren't there, or we weren't using our blowers that day. I mean, I just don't. Is that what other towns do?
Yes. Yep, they do. Newton does it.
Does it work?
Yeah, I mean, as far as I know, I don't live in Newton, but we've talked to people in Newton, they've told us this is how they do it. So I think with any new requirement that requires the police department to be involved, you have to go through a process of learning.
Yeah. But I mean, if they're illegally parked, if the truck's illegally parked, we put the ticket on their windshield. I mean, why wouldn't we be giving it to the crew on that date,
Right. So the feeling is that sometimes the crews might not, I don't know how to say this, but the foreman has been told by their boss to go do something on a particular day with particular equipment. And so the responsibility goes back to the owner, right? Because the homeowner might not even be home during the day. They've hired a landscaping company to do the work.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you for bringing up that, the permits are a challenge and the enforcement is a challenge. That's for sure. Difficult, we're trying to make it as simple as possible. Those are probably the most difficult parts of this, because you do need some type of enforcement. Arlington just went through 5 years of having a bylaw in place that wasn't being enforced, and so the landscapers were ignoring it. And so now they've come back and they've said they've put stricter requirements in place, and they're, being very strict with it. So I think that's an example of a town next to us that chose to put this law in place without enforcement, and it didn't work. So we feel that there's some type of enforcement needs to be put in place. Again, I don't want to speak for Chief O'Connell, but in conversations with us, he thought this was a reasonable approach. It would be fairly simple for him to implement this, and that he would like to have that paperwork in terms of the registrations.
But even if they're not registered,
Mm-hmm.
they would still get a ticket, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd be interested to know, from Chief O'Connell, who talked to his peers in other towns that have this, how much time they're spending responding to these. That's all. Maybe they're spending no time. Maybe they spend a lot of time.
But-
You have the time to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends, I bet when you first have it, you're spending a lot of time, right? And then, as companies get educated, maybe they switch their operations. I don't know. I mean, I assume some of the landscapers that service Winchester serves Arlington too, so they must know the system.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what landscapers think.
Yeah.
Do you mind just switching back to the map for a second from
To
that
the map, sure.
question? So where are we? Yeah, I mean, theoretically, right? They're in Arlington, they're in Lexington.
Right.
Yeah.
They're in communities around.
Absolutely. I mean, as far just from driving around and looking at the trucks, the landscaper trucks, you see the same trucks when you drive through Arlington and Winchester. So I'll keep going, if it's okay. So we're proposing a consistent application across all users, that this would apply to town residents, commercial operators, and the DPW municipal employees and the contractors that they hire. Of course, emergency use would be allowed by fire, police, DPW with an effective date of June 1, 2023. So that's next spring. And, this bylaw would bring a quieter and cleaner town. It reduces this harmful and annoying noise. I think we all know about the low-frequency noise that comes out of gas leaf blowers, which you can hear so many blocks away. And I'm not sure many people know that it actually goes through walls. So that's why even when you're in your own home, we have many people, well, several people, I don't want to say many, but several people in Winchester actually wear noise-canceling headphones in their own home so that they can drown out the noise of the leaf blowers. We would reduce toxic pollution. We know that these are two-stroke engines, which is this mixture of oil and gas, and they really spew toxic particulates and carcinogens every time they're fired up. And this would support our Winchester climate goals. These are very inefficient. Two-stroke engines are inefficient, and they burn fossil fuels, which have a negative impact on the climate. I hope you've looked at the Quiet Clean Winchester website, where households can sign up in support of this effort, and we have over 65 households signed up, so I'm also representing these households who thank you for considering this. Oops, I hit the wrong button. Haha. Spelling. That's not a good page for spelling. Because then we're going to spell check every name on there. So what we're asking the select board to do is to support the bylaw. And we're waiting for town council to complete their review of it. And we would hope that we could get it back from town council in time to take it out to we've talked to many of the committees in town who have expressed support for it. They would like us to bring back the final bylaw so that they can vote on it prior to town meeting. And that includes the Board of Health, Conservation Commission, Planning Board, Climate Action Committee. So, thank you.
I mean, is this something that the Board of Health, the Health Department would possibly regulate? I mean, they're tasked with, issuing a lot of civil citations for, anywhere from kitchens to dwellings to, is this something that have you talked to the Health Department if they're interested in? I mean, I know it sounds like the Board of Health's supporting it, so are they interested?
Didn't, mainly because we didn't think that they had a mechanism to.
Well, if you're talking about registration.
Oh,
I guess.
for registration.
Yeah, I'm talking about the registration part of it.
We didn't, we're happy to talk to you about that. We're happy to do the research. We've already done it, looked at the online forms that the other towns have created, trying to keep it as simple as possible. And then it's really just I would do it myself for you, but I don't think you want a citizen developing this list.
Do you know about how many landscapers there are who are servicing Winchester?
Yeah, we think there's an estimate. We think there's about 75 to 90 that operate in Winchester at any one time, which is actually kind of a big number. But once you start to really focus on it and look at the trucks that are in town, and many of, I mean, you know, the part I didn't touch on is the support of these landscapers. Many of these are people who've lived in Winchester for decades, and they have thriving businesses, and they employ a lot of folks in town. We totally respect landscapers and support them, and that's why we've tried to make this as simple as possible to allow them to, you know, keep their businesses going and be what they are now, which is incredibly important and productive members of our community.
Okay. Any questions? So I think we're waiting for town council to review this, and, you know, we'll continue to discuss it as we get
Right.
closer to town
I mean, we'd be
meeting.
happy to brainstorm with you further about ways to enforce it, and,
Yeah, I mean, I
which
think,
is really the issue. That sounds like the topic here, is the enforcement.
I mean, at least in my opinion, is the registration and the enforcement is
Mhm.
what, you know, I've heard the most feedback on.
Mhm. Right.
Not the spirit of it, it's just that component of it.
Yeah, it's more, hopefully more of a technicality that we can work out.
Okay.
Operations.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you very much, Rachel.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
All right, I see Fred's here from the farmer's market. Fred, we'll just have you up here for a couple minutes, because I think, you know, we asked you to come, and then you've sent several correspondences after, addressing the SNAP program and the match program, and really have clarified the issue, but come on up.
Good evening. This is Marianne de Blasi. She's the president of our board.
Great. So we asked you to come in, at our last meeting, there was, those are hot tonight. Just put them by the door. We asked you to come in, I think at our last meeting, I think you were in the throngs of sending out some social media posts about the SNAP Match program, and, you know, switching the times of the match program. You know, since that meeting, you know, we've gotten a little clarification. I mean, obviously, we permit the farmer's market, it's on our community property. You know, we want to make sure, you know, that it's fair and equitable. So I think, you know, we had concern, or some of our members had concern about, you know, that practice, and, you know, what, you know, the initial correspondence, I think you've acknowledged, were, you know, not as good as they could have been, but certainly you sent several correspondences since then, and most recently, I think it was either this weekend or Friday, I got a long explanation that, you know, seemed to answer my questions, and why you're doing this, and, you know, Anna's fund, and how you're looking for donations. So, you know, is there anything you want to add? You know, I think, assume some of you or all of you have seen those correspondences from Friday and stuff. So is there anything you want to add, or any questions from board members as well?
Well, if you read that letter in the newsletter, that pretty much summed it up. And I feel like the response from the community is pretty satisfactory conclusion for the community. I feel like in general it's been a positive outcome, because it's really raised awareness of the need for food assistance in our community. And we have been doing fundraising every year for this Anna's Fund. And we've sort of hit a wall in terms of most of our funds are raised from individual contributors and the local organizations, ANCA, the banks, the churches, have been great supporters of the fund. But it only goes so far, and the demand for the assistance has gotten greater. And the larger foundations, food assistance foundations, don't support these type of efforts. So this controversy in the last couple of weeks has raised the awareness again, and more people are stepping up, and other organizations are willing to, are wanting to contribute. So that's been very beneficial. And that has allowed us to, we had to lower the amount, and that the fund was going to dry up by the end of this month. And so I feel like this increase will allow us to slowly expand it to the end of the season. And if it continues, then we'll increase the amount again of the matching.
Any questions from board members? I think, like I said, I think we asked you to come, and, certainly I think Friday's correspondence really framed the issue very well and clarified the situation and, the situation the market finds itself in, and, how, really what, you need is, replenishment of Anna's funds, so.
So the benefit is that, so the state has reached out to us, and we've developed these connections with the state, having a conversation here tonight with you. So it's really furthered these conversations and the awareness of the situation.
And we're happy through the town manager's office to help promote the donation program that you have going on our website and through the town manager newsletter and any other avenue that we can help. More than welcome to do that.
Thank you.
Just want to say, thank you for all you do. I mean, I think food security is a big issue in this community. I don't think a lot of people see it or, trust that it's there, but it is. And I think, more than anyone, you guys have really made sure that people can eat and have access to food. And so thank you. I'm sorry if we got a little bit over our skis on this at the last meeting. I think we weren't well informed of what was going on. But I think it really draws attention to an issue that maybe we need to support financially more, that every year you can't be trying to fund these programs by hoping something happens and everybody decides to donate, right? So it would be nice if we could look to something that's more of a endowed amount of money, so every year at least a basic level of money would be there, and because otherwise I think it's going to be difficult in future years, and people that are looking for food for their families, they rely not just on resources but resources that they know are going to be there every time they go. And so I think that's the task that is on us to help as well as residents to handle. So,
and that is definitely something that we struggle with, because we had talked about trying to establish an endowment for that, and the problem is that the problem gets bigger. The pandemic, global supply chains, it's affecting more and more people. And so we feel like we had raised enough to start that endowment fund, but now we need to use that to meet that need.
How much do you think you need?
Well, if things had continued the way they were going earlier this season, we would have needed to raise $40,000 for a matching fund. It's just not possible.
For the season or for an endowment?
For the season. Yeah. So I had mentioned that we're trying to start a food pantry council. And so it's like trying to come at that problem from that level of putting all the different heads who've been working on this and trying to figure out solutions from that level.
Yeah, I mean, speaking from my experience as President's Council of Social Concern in the food pantry over there, I mean, you offer something that, food pantries really can't offer, which they strive to offer, which is fresh fruits and vegetables. I mean, that's, you have to see, our clients' faces when, we have a program where Boy Scouts will grow vegetables and they give it to our food pantry in Woburn, but, it's like a prized possession to get those fresh fruits and vegetables. So that's why your program is so popular, and people come from all over the area, I'm sure, to take advantage of it, especially the produce that you have at your market. So, it's not only is it a food insecurity issue, it's a fresh fruits and vegetables issue as well. And there were times where you would take up collections for the dwelling house and stuff like that at the farmers market, but again, the farmers are then eating into their, hard-earned profits as well. So, this is a great way to do it, and I think with some publicity and, like you said, this event certainly is getting the word out there. I think you'll be able to raise those funds, and, I'm happy to talk to you offline just about some grant opportunities that potentially might be out there that are kind of secret and they don't advertise, but they're out there that, with connections to the town that might be able to step up and, help Anna's funds, because I think that's something in their wheelhouse to do.
So a long-range vision, there's some churches that have they're growing their own vegetable gardens and things like that. And there are a few, there's a Unitarian church in Medford who has a vegetable garden. They grow specifically for food pantries. If we can develop that kind of network within Winchester and just to be able to create that network. And Bright Lock Farm is devoting a couple of rows for Enka. So
okay. Well, go ahead.
I really appreciate the communication on the direct need about the fund and making sure that there is matching funds available and access to fresh food that we're able to access to the farmers market. I think it would have been great to see that kind of culminate in a bit of a different way, but it is heartening to hear that this has picked up steam and support and funding for the program to be able to hopefully continue to operate through the rest of the season. And I appreciate that there are different publicity avenues and access to grants that can be kind of considered for future years and future funding to continue the program and make the market accessible.
All right. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Is the presentation something I could take a copy of?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Beth, do we have anything to discuss for ARPA funding this evening? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to quickly mention that we did open the bids, and we have selected Argus Construction was our low bidder for the project, so they came in with a bid of $735,000 for the base bid, and then additional $230,000 for the alternate, which includes the fencing and the netting. So we did decide to move forward with awarding both the base and the alternate for the project.
So Beth, is this the black fence that goes around the field?
Yeah, so the 4-foot fence that
Right.
goes
Okay,
like
'cause
kind of.
Jim mentioned something else.
So
but-
I want to just make sure I didn't miss something, that it's possible that there's some additional fencing outside of that, but it's definitely just that. It's definitely the 4-foot fence that goes around.
That was what's within the RFP.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in total, between the ARPA funds the board allocated and the donations and the synthetic turf fund, we have $980,550. The engineering department is going to pay for the construction admin services for Chris Huntress, so that leaves us with a contingency of just over $15,000, which isn't a lot, but we feel like this isn't like a utility project. Hopefully there's not a lot of unknowns, but I just wanted to let the board know. it's not a huge contingency. If we run into something unexpected, it's possible we might have to come back to the board for some additional ARPA money, so.
Does it have the cocoa fibers in there? What is it? Instead of the black rubber, it's.
It's
Wood chips.
Yeah. It's
Wood chips, yeah. Okay.
So, that's where things are. I think it's a good update overall.
Well, it's good that they came in the neighborhood we thought they would come in,
Yes.
you know, so hopefully there's no contingencies.
Yeah, yeah.
But if not, you can come back.
Yep.
All right, I think that's it for ARPA at this point. You know, I think obviously in our September meeting, we're gonna have to talk about Washington Swan Street and discuss, you know, whether we expend ARPA funds on that as well, and how we present that to fall town meeting, so. But that's kind of the big outstanding item before we can get to the rest. Fall town meeting articles, is there anything to discuss tonight?
Do you want to talk about CPA at all?
Oh, yeah, the CPA, so
Oh.
that seems.
Yeah, so we had a really good meeting with the Community Preservation Committee, and they were very helpful, extremely knowledgeable. You know, although the bit of bad news is that they recommended that we would push off any sort of vote, which we would need to, one at town meeting and then one at the immediately following election. So they really said waiting until the presidential election in November of '24 would be the best time. And it's hard to argue with their data. It showed that there is a much higher rate of passage during you know, one of those state and national elections. So, and it was the lowest passage rate at just a municipal election, which was kind of the opposite of what we thought, you know, because I think we anticipated that we would be able to get a buzz around at the local level and, you know, get enough to move it forward. So I think, and Beth, I mean, you certainly, you were at the meeting. I mean, although I'm always somebody that wants to move things immediately, I think that their data was compelling. And the other good news is that really the increase in the state match, that, you know, it's significant, and where it had been kind of trailing off for several years, it's now being funded, and it's for our needs and what we spend money on, it's necessary. It's not just another tool. It's something that we really need to move forward and lay the groundwork for. But it is two, you know, big votes, right? It's one at town meeting and then one at an election immediately following. So it's a little bit of work.
You can't like
Yeah,
vote it
wait.
this fall and,
Yep.
and then wait till the
Right.
presidential election. Has to be consecutive, so.
So fair to say we're gonna take this off for the fall this year?
Yeah, I mean,
It was something like 80%
Yeah.
at
Yeah.
presidential, at 40% at a local.
Yeah.
yeah, it
I
was-
mean, it's too bad. I agree, the data seems to support that. I mean, looking at the numbers that the town would generate, you know, with the match, I mean, it's pretty significant, you know, match.
It's a great time to do it because the state's running a surplus, right? And that's
Yeah,
where the funds come from.
exactly.
So you don't know if in 2024, what kind of shape we're gonna be in.
But it's almost
2025.
almost like a 40 to 50% match again. You know, and so, I mean, for a household, it's, you know, short dollars, but it can make a very big, you know, impact in this town, and certainly a lot of projects.
And what they shared with us as well was that communities that did try to go through a municipal election and lose, then when they brought it back, they
Yeah.
lost again. It was very hard once a community lost initially to then you know, get it moving. So I think we need to, you know, create a little bit of a groundswell of support and some education around it. Really, the thing I think people don't understand is that it's split up for multiple uses, which are, you know, what really we need for historic preservation, housing, open space, and there is a committee that really makes recommendations to town meeting on those funds in particular. So it's not just, you know, a suitcase of cash that is just being thrown around. It's very intentional. It's very well managed, and The other thing that was interesting that I wasn't aware of too, you can borrow against that money as well. So you can know that that certain amount is coming in every year, and you can create, you know, if you're doing a larger project, some debt service around it. So it's looks like a great opportunity for us, even at a low, even if it was a 1% surcharge. It would be a game changer. And you know, affordable housing has been our priority for, I don't know, the past 4 or 5 years now. We've made some great progress, but we've created Affordable Housing Trust, but we have no funding mechanism to, you know, really put it into action. So we're going to be, as we do the Swan in Washington, the Waterfield project, and some others that we've put money into, we're running out. So that seems to be a necessary component for our future.
Okay. So we'll look to do that in spring of 2024. Just like it.
You'll have to run again.
John and Thea can do this. Your legacy in the town. Good luck. Okay, we didn't do donations, so I'm gonna jump back to donations at this point.
I move we accept 2 ARPA stabilization grants to the Recreation Department for the June and final disbursement, one in the amount of $16,333.33 to be used for the Rapid Connection, and the other in the amount of $5,416.67 to be used for the Lynch After School Program.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And I move we accept a donation of $100,000 from Winchester Sports Foundation towards the replacement of the Manchester turf.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And obviously, those are accepted with gratitude, and I think at some point, the Sports Foundation, you know, when they're available, will come in and we'll have a little presentation, but we thank them for their contribution towards the turf replacement. Very, very generous donation for that. Okay, I think that's everything but the town manager search, so Beth, if you want to recuse yourself, thank you for all your help.
This guy too.
Oh, well, Beth's packing out. We have a supplemental agenda and a consent agenda. Do you want to just do that quickly?
I move we accept the consent agenda as listed on the August 15th, 2022 meeting agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye. And this
And move
supplemental.
we accept the consent agenda as
The supplemental agenda.
listed on the supplemental agenda for Monday, August 15th, 2022.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thanks, Beth, for everything.
Thanks, Beth. Have a good night.
Okay, on the town manager search, just a quick update. So we've retained Paradigm. I know Mark had an initial meeting with them. He's kind of running point from us internal standpoint on this. And what they're doing right now is they're developing the profile. And as part of that, they sent a survey out to department heads that's due back tomorrow to get department head input on the profile for a town manager. They're also going to be reaching out to each of you individually to have a discussion with you individually about that, you know, what you think, you know, what you're looking for in a town manager search application profile. So suspect getting a call in the next couple days or an email just to set up a time just to go over that with them. The goal would be to come back, you know, at our either, you know, a special meeting the first week of September or our September 12th meeting with, you know, them to present, you know, and get feedback on the profile for the application. That's the first step. So that's kind of the update right now. Any questions on that?
Just a heads up that their emails did get filtered to my junk folder, so
Yes.
take a look there.
I'll make sure that there's a heads up when they
Yeah.
go out. I think they're going to be calling all of you. So that's just the next 2 steps in that process. Okay? Any questions? All right, I think we cover everything. Patty, we miss anything?
No, we were all set.
Okay.
And you made it before 10.
A little longer.
Because we started at 6.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good night. Thank you, WinCam.
Thank you.